I just came to do community service. That's it. Like, I did not sign up for all of this. And I know what a lot of y'all
Oh,
would
this is her
say.
real
Give
story.
men
She
need
telling
love too.
her.
I know.
Yeah.
I agree. They do. They need and deserve love too. Except for, the ones I talk about in these stories. But, child, they got sites for that. So just because I don't want to love him don't mean nobody else does. Anyway, back to the story. It was at this job that he met his now wife, Alicia, and at the time, the two were both in a relationship. He was still dealing with his girlfriend on the outside. And Alicia herself, she was not single. Sis had a whole husband, but she was going through the process of a divorce. They both were experiencing a lot of relationship issues, which is how they started, talking and bonding and forming a relationship, giving each other advice and also receiving advice to really form a bond over their failing relationships, which over time develops into an attraction to one another. And the two of them form a relationship. Jeremy completes his 4 years and then he is released on probation and offered a job. With this job offer and his newfound love and Alicia, he decides that he's not going to leave Kansas City after all. And of course, his daughter is there, so that's even another reason for him to just stick around. He's feeling very optimistic about the direction of his life. As for what Miss Alicia had going on, in addition to working, this was also a full-time student. She was very, very passionate about both her schoolwork and her career life. This really attracted Jeremy to her. He really admired her ambition. And he felt like this was just the perfect setup. She had come into his life at the perfect time. He is feeling all ambitious. He got goals and he is ready to achieve them. And he has a woman that's equally ambitious and well on her way to being successful. And so, together they were trying to give Jay-Z and Beyonce. Okay? That was the vibe. Now, granted, you can have all of the ambition in the world and it not stem from some sort of trauma or anything other than you just wanting to do better and succeed and have goals and have a certain vision for the way you want your future to go. But this was not the case for these two. We already know where Jeremy's comes from. He was in jail, self-reflecting. He wanted to make changes for his life and his daughter. But Alicia's, hers stemmed from her childhood trauma. She was a victim of abuse in her childhood. She wanted to make sure that she never had to depend on anyone else. And when she envisioned her future, she saw herself as successful, strong, independent, and not needing no man, but also having a man because sis wanted a man. She had also fantasized about having a man that would love her and be her knight in shining armor and protect her in ways that she had not been protected in her past. In talking to Jeremy, she got to see the very nurturing, loving side of him, and that really attracted her to him. She also felt like he could protect her as well. I mean, she did meet him in jail, child. Nevertheless, Jeremy has all of the qualities of her ideal man, and so she is very much invested in this relationship. Furthermore, Alicia could not have children on her own, and the fact that Jeremy already had a daughter that was fairly young, paired with the fact that he was extremely crazy about her, he was working on a custody agreement, which would allow him to have more time with her. To her, all of these things meant that she would have the opportunity to have a family of her own after all. And granted, there are other options and avenues she could have taken to have a child or a family. I guess this was an easy, just add water, ready-made version of the little family that she wanted. A year into their relationship, Jeremy proposes. He is sure that this is the woman he wants to be with forever. He does not need any more time to figure it out. The two have a very, very cute and intimate wedding. It's just their closest friends, their closest family members, and a really good time. After the wedding, Alicia gets a job at an insurance company. Jeremy, he begins driving trucks for a concrete company. The two are extremely happy and life is good for them. Like they're really enjoying the newlywed life. They're off to a really good start and they're very much flourishing as a young couple. Until fast forward 3 years later, they have now been ambushed while sitting inside of their car. And no one knows why. The investigators have scoured the scene. They have spoken to the witnesses, they have spoken to family members, and they cannot figure out who will want to hurt this couple and why. The person most likely to have an answer to that is Alicia. And at this point, they're very, very anxious to talk to her, but they couldn't speak with her right away because Alicia had undergone surgery to remove a bullet from her back and she was now in a coma. They were so anxious to talk to her, they were checking every 3 to 4 hours on her status to see if she was awake and ready to tell them whatever she could remember, if she could remember anything. After several hours with little to no progress from Alicia, they decided to go back and speak with people in the neighborhood and the person who made the 911 call. The witness tells them that at the time he was standing in his own yard, just a couple of houses down. He noticed the car was sitting down there briefly with the lights off. And then, he's minding his own business. He hears the gunshots. When he looks back down that way, he sees the car coast like down the hill a little bit. And then moments later, he sees the lights come on. They talked to a few of the other witnesses. Some reported seeing a tan SUV in the area not far from where the incident had taken place. There was also one that said that the assailant had entered that tan vehicle on the passenger side, which lets them know that now we're looking for two people instead of one. Now our suspect list has doubled. In the day following the attack, Alicia, she wakes up from her coma and she finds that her mother, as well as Jeremy's mother, are both by her bedside. They have both been by her bedside the entire time, waiting on her condition to improve and just, trying to be supportive. As soon as she wakes up, like the first thing out of her mouth is, "Where's Jeremy?" Neither of the mothers want to answer that question. Like, neither one of them want to be the one to break it to her.
Thank y'all
She
for the
begins
likes.
demanding
Thank y'all for
an
commenting.
update of her husband. She's rubbing on her little ring and she's like, "Where is Jeremy? Like, what's going on?" Jeremy's mother then decides that she's going to be the one to just go ahead and break it to her that her husband had not survived the attack, unfortunately. The perpetrator had approached the vehicle on his side, which was the passenger side, so he suffered most of the shots. He was hit 3 times versus her 1. Hearing the news that her husband did not make it, and she becomes hysterical. She is screaming, she is crying, and she's just pretty much distraught. Then she experiences a little bit of denial. She's like, no, like this can't be true, this can't be right, this can't be life. No, I'm not accepting that. Like, she was torn up. And Jeremy's mother, granted, she's going through her own grief. Like, she lost her child, her son. She's very much going through it herself, but she had grown to love Alicia like a daughter over the years that she had been dating and married to her son. And so she really wanted to be there to support her as well and lift her up in any way that she could, despite her going through her own mess. Furthermore, that was not the extent of the trauma that Alicia was about to be faced with, because of course she had just waken up. So she had not been given an update on her own condition. Doctors come into the room and they tell Alicia that the bullet that hit her actually hit her spine, causing a lot of damage, and that she was now paralyzed from the waist down. With how severe the damage was to her spinal cord, she would never walk again. Like, there was literally no chance of it happening. When she hears this news, she reacts just as heartbroken and hysterically and distraught as she had hearing the news about Jeremy. It was a lot for one day. Hell, that's a lot for a lifetime. Then in come investigators into the room because they need to question Alicia and try to see if they can get a better understanding as to who will want to hurt the couple and why. It was very much obvious to them that that was the motive, just to hurt them. The incident had taken place at 5:33 a.m. They tell Alicia to run down everything that she had done beginning the evening prior to that, because they were thinking that maybe somebody could have followed her home.
Thank y'all for joining. Don't forget to like and everything.
That's what happened. That's what led them back to her home. Alicia is giving them the details, and she tells them that she had actually attended a party the evening before, and she didn't get home until 3 a.m. When she arrives home, Jeremy is awake, and he is questioning her about why she had been out so late. He was very irritated at the fact that she had been out so late. Furthermore, he had called her several times, but she had only answered one call. And so he's like, you out here really wild. First of all, you out late, then you want to not answer your phone. What's good? Right. Alicia's way of smoothing things over with Jeremy is initiating a little adult exchange. The two get in the showers together and it's all hot and steamy, doing what y'all be doing. Jeremy actually has to be at work in a little bit, because mind you, it's like roughly around 4 now, and he had to be at work, I believe, at 6. Alicia did not have to be at work that day, and something was wrong with their car, so the plan was for her to drop him off at work, go get the car taken care of, and then pick him up after the fact. So the two get out of the shower, he gets dressed for work, she puts on whatever she had on, I don't know, and then they leave the house. Now, according to Alicia, they go get into the car and they don't make it far throughout the neighborhood because a red SUV comes and pulls up in front of them, kind of blocks them off. She attempts to beep her horn, but they're not responding. She tries to go around the vehicle, but she said she was unable to. Then all of a sudden, two Hispanic men hop out, approach the vehicle on Jeremy's side, and start firing off shots. She said she heard the shots and then she just blacks out, like almost immediately. She also tells police that she had recognized them from about a week before. She had seen them at an auto parts store, and they had actually walked past her and complimented her on the rims that she had on the vehicle. She acknowledged them, thanked them for the compliment, and to her knowledge, that was it. When she sees them hop out of the vehicle and she recognizes them and sees the guns, immediately she believed that they were about to carjack her, but they don't attempt to take anything. And even with that, she still feels like that was the intent. It just went wrong and they decided last minute, never mind. Investigators have been looking forward to speaking with Alicia for so long. They were so anxious to talk to her. But after speaking with her, they had more questions than they had answers. Is the SUV tan, girl, or is it red? If it was about to be a carjacking and that's the intent, why would they approach on the passenger side versus the driver's side? If it's two of them, why not approach on both sides and clear the car at the same time? It caused more questions than they even had before. Like, nothing made sense. They also note that it struck them as odd that Jeremy's window was down and none of the other car windows were down, but I can think of a million reasons as to why that would be a justifiable thing. Yeah, maybe Jeremy was smoking a cigarette. Maybe Jeremy was hot and she wasn't. Maybe Jeremy was throwing something out of the window. They're confused, but they don't want to apply any more duress or stress to Alicia, and so they don't tell her that she is now confusing them even more. They just thank her, tell her that if she remembers anything else,
Did he in
to
jail,
give them
right?
a call.
I didn't expect it.
I
I never thought he would go to jail.
They also realized that Alicia had just gone through something very traumatic and she was very heavily medicated, so she could easily be a little confused. Maybe it is tan. Maybe later on she'll fall back and say, you know what, it was tan. Like, we'll give her time to clear her mind, and maybe she can tell us something else that is actually helpful. Investigators had talked to the witnesses 2-3 times over. They talked to Alicia, it didn't really get them nowhere, so they decide to look up some of the people that were at this party that Alicia mentioned she was at the night before. And when they speak to them, honey, the tea, it runneth over, okay? Apparently, Alicia was there the night before with her little side piece, Darrell Rogers. She had conveniently left that out of the tail, child. I guess they thought that wasn't important. The two had arrived together. They had spent the night all, Buddha, looking like a couple doing the things that couples do at a party. And they had also left together. But Alicia had completely left that out of her version of events. And somebody really knew and was telling her business, because they also let investigators know that the two had met months prior and had been sneaking and freaking ever since. Terrell was a bit of a bad boy. He had this bad boy, tough guy persona, and this really attracted Alicia to him, this nice little street hood edge that he had. She found it very attractive. We also know that Alicia needs a man that she feels protected by. And so that is another big plus for Darrell. He makes Alicia feel like he can protect her from anything. Like, he can literally shield her from the world. Investigators decide first to confirm it on their own before they even bring it to Alicia's attention. And so they have her phone records pulled, and they see that, in fact, she has been talking to Darrell constantly. Over the preceding months, there have been numerous calls and texts between the two, all times of the night and all times of the day. They go back and ask Miss Alicia, are you familiar with the Darrell Rogers? And she quickly responds, I know of him. She ain't all that familiar, but she knows somebody by that name. They then tell her that they had heard through the grapevine that he and her had a little thing going on. And she quickly and very hastily tells them, no such thing had ever happened between them. No such affair was a thing. They were only friends. That's it. And that her marriage was solid. Now, Jeremy, he didn't like her staying out late. He didn't mind letting her know that. And yes, they had had a couple of hiccups over the course of their 4 years, but nothing out of the norm. And their marriage was a good one. Like, she wouldn't have a reason to be out here cheating on Jeremy.
She did.
For lit. Jeremy's uncle John, who initially seen the news coverage and came down to the scene, he had also given investigators a little tippy tip that he thought was kind of strange. Uncle John had gone to visit Alicia in her little hospital bed, and as he is leaving, there's this strange, unfamiliar man in a hoodie. He has the hood up and he is walking toward Alicia's room. And her sister is not far behind. He had never seen this guy before. It really struck him his eye. And granted, it could have been a friend of the sisters because it appeared that they could have possibly been together, but they were not walking exactly side by side. Like they were a little, one was a little ahead of the other. So he was kind of like, you know what? Maybe it's a friend of the sisters. I don't know. But just in case, in the event that it's not, and it really is something that can help the case, I'm going to tell the investigators. I'm going to let y'all know. But he had a feeling that it was not something as simple as this just being her sister's friend. Like something in his little spirit said, nah, something is up. When they bring this to her attention and ask her about her mystery visitor, she completely shuts down. She doesn't want to talk about it at all, period. Alicia flatly refuses to say anything about this visitor. In their mind, this could possibly be the guy who did this to her and her husband. And she's protecting him because inadvertently she's now protecting herself. Maybe he came there, threatened her, and she's scared to even talk about it. Like maybe he had found out what her hospital room number was and decided to come there, pay her a visit, give her a little threat and say, look, keep it on the hush or we will, we'll be back. To them, this made sense that she would not tell them about it because if he snuck it in before, gotten into her room before, then he could very well do it again. They're not there around the clock to protect her. She knows this. So if that is the case, then of course she would be reluctant to give them any kind of information. And I in no way mean this to be funny, but let's
he's like
address the elephant in the room here.
Like,
If you did come into the room, she's pretty much helped us. Investigators, they don't press the issue, but they don't give up either. They go and ask that sister about the visitor, and the sister was like, no, that was not my friend. I don't even know who that man was. But she does tell investigators that yes, he did come into the room while I was in there. And the two had a very brief conversation, but I couldn't hear it because he had approached her bedside and he began whispering in her ear. Everything he ever said the whole time he was there, he whispered directly into her ear. All of her responses, he held his little ear to her lips and she whispered back. And so the sister didn't hear anything. Investigators enlist the help of that sister and the mother and try to get them to convince her to give any information up that she has. Don't be afraid. If it's a thing where he came there and he threatened her, they will very, very gladly offer her the protection she needed. And if that's not the case either, she needs to let them know what the visit was about. Like, be forthcoming. We trying to solve this thing, girl. This angle does work. The mother and sister speak with her, encourage her to tell the truth, and Alicia begins to tell them a lot. First, she admits that the affair rumors between her and Darrell are actually true. Then she names him as the shooter. She tells them that he was actually the one that ambushed them that morning. She said that he had become increasingly jealous of Jeremy over the past couple weeks. And he was telling her, she needs to leave him. He wants to be with her. But she told him that she still very much loved her husband and wanted the marriage, and this was just, a flame.
We don't know Diddy.
Nothing more, nothing less.
We didn't go to Diddy's
She did not want anything
How are we supposed
serious.
to know Diddy?
She was not leaving her man.
If I did, I would be
she
rich
says
right
that
now.
although she does tell him that she can't leave her husband, she will, however, continue to see him because she has fun with him. Honey, they bump and grind and have a good time. She doesn't mind being with him to an extent, but he couldn't have it all. She was expecting for them to come to some sort of agreement, but it just results in him being more jealous of Jeremy because now he knew for sure that the highest he was going to climb on the rank was number 2, and that she was not leaving her husband for him. Darrell very desperately wanted the spot that Jeremy was in. He had become a little bit more reckless after this, threatening to expose her and things like that. So it gradually becomes a very toxic kind of situation, but she said that she just kind of didn't know how to get out of it. She knew Darrell for his work, so she knew he was fully capable of doing something like this, and this was what she was afraid of. So a little part of her was actually afraid to break it off because She didn't want something like this to happen. Darrell had a bit of a quick temper. It didn't take much to provoke him and get him to this hostile state. There have been a lot of times where he will become very, very angry and enraged over like the smallest little thing. And what he had most recently become very upset about was the fact that while they were at this party together, Jeremy kept calling his wife's phone. He kept calling Alicia's phone. And when she finally does answer, he tells her that she needs to come home right away. It's not acceptable for you as a married woman to be out here running the streets and at parties at 3 a.m. So wrap it up, sweetie, and bring it home. Darrell did not like this at all. He was very much pissed. It really rubbed him the wrong way that he could be out having a good time with the woman that he loves, and then another man could just call her and tell her, that's enough, come home. As for the hospital visit and the whispers, according to Alicia, he was coming there to apologize because she is the woman that he loves. He is sorry that he had hurt her. He said that he hated to see her like this and that he just had to come because he could not wait to let her know that he was sorry and that he just felt so bad. Like he never meant for this to happen. Then all of a sudden he goes from apologizing to threatening her, telling her he knows where her sister lives, where her mother lives, and that if she gave his name to police, he could easily find them and would do the same to them. They'd be in the same predicament situation she is. And she admits to making up the story about the Hispanic men being the ones who were responsible for what had happened because she was afraid. Why did you blame on Hispanic people? They made the decision to put Alicia into protective custody immediately and go looking for Darrell. It takes them about a week to get a warrant.
She could have said anybody else.
Once they do, they get on the streets looking for him, but they cannot find Darrell anywhere, like nowhere. And they still don't know who was driving the getaway car. So when they don't have any luck finding him, they decide to appeal to the public, put his picture out there and let them know, like, look, if you see sis, call us.
Guessing as soon as you go home,
you start packing up. They also present the story like, be careful because he can be armed and dangerous. And so when Darrell sees this, he's like, girl, let me go talk to these people. He contacts them and he lets them know that he will gladly come down to the station and talk to them. They're completely surprised by this. They're like, well, that was easy. He tells them he is on his way to answer any questions that they have and to also clear his name that is being dragged through the mud down on Channel 13 News. Darrell gets down to the station. He tells them he is in no way involved in this ordeal, period, at all. And he wasn't even in town when all of this went down.
He's lying at us.
He can actually call somebody right now who can attest to that alibi and tell them, yes, he was at my house in Missouri. He also denies any allegations of an affair with Alicia. He says that the two were not romantically involved at all. That's a lie. And he doesn't know what's going on or why his name has been dragged in it, but whatever they've been told is not true. He also has a very smug attitude and he's being very sarcastic in a lot of his responses to the investigators. And honey, all of that subsides when they let him know they have pulled his records. They good for pulling a nasty little phone record. They have confirmed that his cell phone was pinging off the towers right near the scene.
Even if the alibi.
Crime, so that was a lie.
I didn't know they could do that.
Read him his rights and let him know he's now officially under arrest. Then they ask him for the name of the getaway driver, and he, of course, he didn't give that up. He said, no, man, he was not trying to cooperate with them and give up whomever. Now, although they still did not know who the second person was, they had the shooter. So they decided to go forward with his trial, hoping that whatever didn't come out in the wash will come out in the rinse, and that, they could get the getaway driver later. But of course, this is the most important part of the case, so they treated it as such. Not having the name of the getaway driver was not going to break their case against Darrell, which, according to them, they had a very tight case. They were very confident in their ability to convict him of this crime, especially considering that they had a star witness, Alicia. Miss Alicia was willing to come down, testify against Darrell, and let them know what really happened. It was a pretty clean and tight case. Or so it seemed. Months go by while he is awaiting his trial, and Alicia is getting better. She's recovering. She's now adjusting to her life, not being able to walk. And of course, because she is a witness, she still has police protection and she is in protective custody. The prosecution, they have finalized their case against Darrell completely. They were just waiting on the start of the trial and to wear sis out. Okay. Then a week before the preliminary hearing, Alicia has her lawyer reach out to the prosecution to say, never mind.
If we don't use all the
She
hair,
could
you
not
have the rest of the hair,
testify
right?
against Darrell at all.
You sure?
She could not name him as the shooter, him or anyone else for that matter, really. She also claims that she had prematurely named him as the perpetrator before, under intense pressure of her family
You probably gonna
and the
stay in my
police.
closet though,
And
because
so
nobody
once
gives
this goes to trial,
people
it
barely
goes
get.
a little bit too far.
Number
She wants
4.
to just go ahead,
For you
recant
next time.
her entire statement, and bow out gracefully. Without any other evidence that supported Darrell having anything to do with this, aside from Alicia, of course, naming him as the shooter, they were forced to just drop the charges and let him out, like free him immediately. The cell phone records, him being in the area, that alone is not enough to prove beyond a shadow of a doubt that he was the one that did all of this. Jeremy's family is devastated by this, and rightfully so. They're thinking they're about to get justice for their loved one, and then all of a sudden she's like, psych, I don't know who it was. Like, girl. Then it is revealed that not long after Darrell is released from prison, Alicia begins talking to him regularly again. Now, initially, he was mad at her for naming him as the suspect. Girl, you had me locked up. So he wasn't trying to talk to her, but Alicia began to play up on her injury, like, oh, woe is me, look at the state that I'm in, like, forgive me, don't you feel bad for me? And eventually, he kind of does feel bad for her, like, he really did feel bad. He really did empathize with Alicia. And it also didn't hurt the fact that she offered to share some of the money with him, because she had received her insurance money from the loss of her husband, which she was more than happy to share with and splurge on Darrell in an effort to kind of like draw him back in. So when her insurance check clears and settles into her bank account all nice and cute, he forgives her. The two actually rekindle their romance, begin dating, and they move in together. Darrell is her lover and her caretaker, okay? Her lover and her secretary, if you will. And when it comes to the investigation, detectives are still reaching out to her regularly because they're not going to just close the case. And they're still reaching out to her to, just see if anything has changed, anything she remembered that she did before, any new developments, and also give her any kind of update that they may have had for her. But eventually, like, the communication between her and the detectives kind of subsides and dies down, and she's just feeling like, you know what, maybe it's good that I can just move on now with my life and put this all behind me. Meanwhile, she is out here blowing money fast. Sis is buying cars. She's bought a new house, of course, for her and Darrell. She's buying jewelry, just spending a lot of money. A lot. And the calls from the investigators had not slowed down because they had lost any interest in the case or they had given up. They had actually decided to take a step back and look at Alicia a little closer. Is she really the grieving widow that she had appeared to be all this time, or could something else be going on here? At the rate that she was spending money, plus her having to fund Darrell's lifestyle, within 3 years, all of the insurance money is gone. Furthermore, having gone 3 years now with limited intimacy, and them just pretty much now living together for the first time, getting to know each other and getting really used to each other, unfortunately, honey, the fire had sizzled down. The flame was gone. However, they both by this time had become interdependent of each other, so both of them felt like they were just stuck in the relationship. Alicia, because he was her caregiver, she didn't have anybody else that could come and take care of her around the clock. And for him, as for Darrell, he didn't even have a job, so he had no income. He lived in her house, and leaving Alicia would mean leaving behind really his security. He literally could not afford to. Detectives had also eased up on calling Alicia because they had received a tip and a lead as to who that getaway driver might be, and so they were out there pursuing that. Jamar Moore was a very close friend of Darrell's. He was a lot younger than Darrell, and he treated Darrell like a big brother, like with that big brother respect and loyalty. But it was a little deeper than that because he genuinely idolized Darrell, and he would do anything Darrell asked him to do. Like, he was kind of a flunky, kind of a follower. Furthermore, they found out that he kind of, he down to do some shady stuff for a little piece of coin, a little money. So they have no doubt in their mind that if Darrell wanted him to do something like this, he definitely probably would have agreed to do it. They decide to bring Jamar in for questioning because they say, two men can keep a secret if one of them is dead. In this case, both of them were very much alive and well. They question him, and it does not take much effort or much time for him to crack and blow the case wide open, child. He let the floodgates open and spilled all of the tea. Secrets for what? I told you how they have begun to suspect that Alicia was not the grieving widow that she had portrayed herself to be all this time and that she possibly could have had something to do with this. Well, they were right. This is what Jamar tells detectives. Shortly after Alicia had gotten married, she became bored with her husband. She felt like, this is not as exciting as I thought it would be. She meets Darrell. They begin having an affair, and the spiciness of their affair, coupled with his bad boy persona, had Alicia's nose wide open. After a little time, it became very clear to her that Darrell was the man that she wanted to be with. This was the one. The only problem with that was the fact that her husband was in the way of that. And the problem with just leaving her husband was the fact that he made most of the
I guess
money,
she wanted the money.
which she was using to hang out with Darrell and give him money. Darrell did not have a job, nor did he have steady income, so she did not want to just up and leave with him and ride off into the sunset. Girl, what was they gonna ride on? What? Well, I guess this could ride on his back, but whatever. Instead of Darrell having conventional employment, he was a hustler, but apparently he wasn't that good of a hustler because he was struggling and getting money from Alicia. Remember when I told you that after they got married, Alicia got her a nice little job down to the insurance company? Well, sis had signed Jeremy up for a life insurance policy, unbeknownst to him, named herself as the beneficiary for $400,000. That is the life insurance policy that she had been living off of all of this time, and she had not given one single little copper penny to Jeremy's daughter. Like, no money. Not to his mother, not anybody. She had paid for the funeral, and that was it. So instead of it being, oh, Darrell wanted to be with me, but I wasn't gonna leave my husband, no, it was a very mutual thing. They wanted to be with each other, but they needed money. So they come up with this plan to take this life insurance policy out. They plan out this whole entire ambush. And it's actually Alicia's idea that she also gets shot during the ambush to make it seem a little more organic, a little more real and believable. So she tells Darrell to shoot her in the leg. It was supposed to just be a superficial shot in the leg, but this nut ended up paralyzing her. Or maybe that was instant karma. Who knows? Anyway, she was supposed to say it was two Hispanic men. They were gonna never catch these Hispanic men because they don't exist. Or, you know how the police get down, find two Hispanic men, but that's a different story. Then she would cash in on the insurance policy. They would take the money and live happily ever after. Well, they had also promised Jamar $2,000 to be the getaway driver. However, when things go left and shit hits the fan, Alicia is left with a big old mess to clean up, child. A huge mess. And so she cleans that up as best she can. To see her and Darrell start having issues. So she just decided, you know what? I'm gonna throw your ass under the bus and be this grieving widow. Then she had a change of heart and was like, you know what? Never mind. We can still be together. Let's make it right. Just a mess. She decides to put on this Oscar-worthy performance as this grieving widow when she talks to detectives for months. And when they begin to call her less and less, sis is thinking she made it. She's like, okay, we're in the clear. Like, we really pulled this off. She had lost the use of her lower half, but she had made it out with her life, and she had the man that she loved. Well, initially, this is how it started. And so she was happy, at first. And as if her blowing the money and losing her lover's interest wasn't bad enough, now their third accomplice, Mr. Jamar Moore, was giving them up down to the police station, just completely selling them out, which he was more than happy to do at this point because they had not paid him that $2,000. Them receiving all of their money and flaunting it the way that they did and not giving him his little $2,000 really did not sit well with him. He was pissed about it. Furthermore, he wasn't even spending all that much time with his homie Darrell anymore because he had moved across town with his woman, having to be her caretaker around the clock. He didn't have time to be out on the block bars, and that was intentional. Jamar gladly tells them everything. And it actually turns out that he was also at that party the night before, and they were there to go over the details one last time before they put their plan in motion. Then Alicia goes home to complete her leg of the race, which is luring her unsuspecting husband into an ambush. Like, how do you have sex with a man your man. And you have a whole nother one waiting down the street to take him out. Like, who does that? She and Jeremy are in the car driving to the spot. As soon as they get to that point, she stops the car. She turns the lights off on the vehicle, rolls Jeremy's window down. I'm sure he's confused, like, what the hell is going on? But she does this so that Darrell can have a more ease of access. He comes out of nowhere on cue, does what he does, takes off on foot, gets into the Yes Tan SUV. She of course lied to authorities to throw them off. And then Jamar drove him away. Of course, with this new information, the detectives, they go and arrest the other two, and they put Jamar under arrest for his involvement. And now 3 years after the fact, the three of them are all sitting in jail waiting on their trial date to start. They had 3 separate trials. Oh, but they're not done with their shenanigans. During this time, while they are locked away, Darrell writes a letter, sends it out to his family member with instructions to mail it now to Alicia. Because you know, by law, they couldn't mail each other letters. The letter tells Alicia to be calm, not to worry, and that he is going to fix this. And she has no idea what that means, but she feels very confident in it. It's giving her a little boost to her morale because she still loves Darrell. She still trusts Darrell. And she's like, you know what? He gonna come through and protect me. Whatever it is that he has up his sleeve, hopefully it works. Honey, what was up Darrell's sleeve? The night before the first day of Alicia's trial, his lawyers go to the prosecutors and tell them that they want to make a deal. Darrell is willing and ready to testify against Alicia completely in order to receive a reduced sentence. If they can give him a nice deal, he will give them a full detailed confession and he will sit up there in court and point her out. Okay? He gonna tell you. Now, the prosecutors, they felt like they didn't even need that. Like, girl, we good. One, they didn't really trust him. They felt like Alicia had played them enough. And so they were like, you know what? We don't even need that. No deal. No thank you. And so they respectfully declined his offer and he is pissed because he thought he was gonna slide in there last minute and cut a deal. At first, the jury, they had a lot of sympathy for her looking at her. She looked like this sad, poor little widow, and then she was in a wheelchair, so they were feeling bad for her for that. Until they heard the details of the case, and then they were like, yeah, fuck her, and handed that girl a life sentence. Darrell goes to trial in 2009, and as a last-ditch effort to kind of gain some leniency and minimize his time, he puts in a guilty plea. Just pleads guilty. Doesn't work. He's also given a life sentence. As for Jamar Moore, for his limited involvement and his cooperation and help getting this little case to the finish line, he is only given 3 years.
3 years? He only got 3 years for killing somebody.
The fact that, yeah, you did help, but you didn't have a direct hand in it. And you did make a way for the family to, receive justice.
But if he didn't drive, dude wouldn't have gotten killed.
I feel like that's fair. Now, I wasn't going to bring this up. I wasn't. I didn't want to, but I have to. And so, here we are. Darrell Rogers' birthday is August 26, 1973. So Virgos, this is another L for you. And actually, I didn't even feel bad about reporting it. I was like, the Virgos never have to take a hit. They're such nice, sweet people. Like, Virgos are very peaceful. And it's just like, girl, we know some of y'all, that's the front. So I was so glad to, expose y'all in the last video. And then when I got to this video and I saw this Virgo, I'm like, again. But then I looked up Miss Alicia's birthday.
She's a Virgo too.
Unfortunately, it is October 23rd, 1976.
She's a Scorpio or Virgo?
This is a Scorpio. We don't have to talk about it though. She was almost a Libra. That is pretty much it for this case. Both of them are just rotting away in prison. And Jeremy's family, they received the justice and the closure that they deserved. End of story. Honey, the geese are really working my nerves right out here. Now, as for how we got out of the break room, y'all. So after we had been in there,
now she's telling her story
for about an hour and a half. Finally, we see through the glass, like on the door, the little cleaning lady is pushing a little trash bin past the door, and we immediately, of course, go to the door. We're like, hey, girl, let us out, girl, let us out. She's like, oh, I'm sorry. So apparently what happens is, like I said, she was on the night shift, and she would clean the break rooms up, And people would still come in there like late before they went home and not clean up after themselves. And the ladies on the morning shift, they had begun to complain on her, saying that she was not cleaning at night. So in an effort to kind of, keep her name clear and not get in trouble, she had started locking the break room after a certain hour. Like within the last 2 hours of our business hours, break room was locked. And because we never went to lunch that late, we never knew this at all. So learning experience. But yeah, she let us out. And then our supervisor had the audacity to be mad at us. He was like, "Where y'all been?" And I'm like, "Miss Girl, you knew we were going to lunch. Why didn't you come check on us? Because you knew we were going to lunch and then we just disappeared. Like, you didn't try to see if we were okay." I don't know if he thought we all left for lunch or what, but he was pissed that for an hour and a half he had an empty office. Had to do everything himself, which he ain't never do nothing anyway, so it wasn't gonna kill him to do a little piece of work for an hour and a half. And honey, when I would see Brittany in passing, we would just say hey and go. Not hey Brittany, not hey name twin, none of the things, just hey, how you doing today? That was it. And honey, just like that was it for that situation, that is it for this video. I hope you enjoyed it. As always, I appreciate you so much for spending time with me. And I will see you again.
I like watching
you. There have been times I would date when he tortured him. He was howling, start crying, and he thought it was fun. He laughed, gave me a little funny grin. So he just had fun. I didn't see that in him, but I knew that he was torturing. I asked God to forgive me for what I did, but I knew for a fact I didn't kill him.
Somebody said this is tradition.
Today's video
is because it's Sunday.
That was requested by a lot of y'all, okay? A lot of y'all. This name has been in my comment section so much, and I have refrained from doing the story because he just makes my ass itch. Before we get started today, no, this ain't no sponsorship, girl. What would I look like sitting here trying to sell y'all a baby Doppler? So this is the thing. This is a baby Doppler. It's like a handheld, you can listen to your baby's heartbeat through this little thing anytime you want.
She don't even got
just put a little jelly on his stomach and hold the little thing there and it plays the heartbeat. I have bought this for somebody, and unfortunately, before it was time for me to gift it to them, they lost their baby. I noticed in the Tika survivor story comment sections, a lot of y'all comment that y'all are expecting mothers. If you are an expectant mother out there in these streets, and you are interested, if you want it free of charge, I will sanitize the box because we got the COVID issue going on. It has never been opened. If you bought at the house and you want to lay up and listen to your little baby heartbeat child, send me an email. I'll put the email address on the screen. First person, I guess, that I get the email from, I will gladly send it to you. I hit the outside of the box with a little Lysol wipe. You ain't gotta worry about the cooties of the coronas crawling all over the box. Make sure you also leave, of course, your address where you want me to ship it to. And that's just it. And you just gotta name your baby after me. That's it. Like if it's a girl, Brittany is the vibe. If it's a boy,
what you gonna call the boy, bro?
You know what? I met a boy named Brittany. He wasn't a boy, he was a grown man. He looked like a big old strong football player, honestly. And his name was Brittany. It was the craziest thing ever. I felt like I was in the Twilight Zone. So this is what happened real quick. I'm at work and I took a late lunch, me and like the other girls that said was around me. We took a late lunch. When we got to the break room area, this is in 2008. So they still had a payphone. Look at the young ones like, what's the payphone? They still had a payphone inside the break room, which is crazy because I feel like in 2008, that's still...
I think payphones were still around. Payphones are still around.
Nevertheless, me and the girls get to the break room. We put all our little quarters in the house. Into
not
the
now,
machines
but I remember
to get
when I
our
was
snacks,
there,
right? We sitting down, partaking in our lunch, and then this guy comes into the break room, minding his own business. Now, this was the night shift. We get up to leave. We go to pull on the little door, baby, and it is very much locked. So we're like, okay, no worries, they lock this door. We go and check all four. All of them locked. We shaking it. Literally, nobody's around. Nobody's hearing anything. None of us had our cell phones. So we like, you know what? We took this guilty verdict. He also was discharged from the Army. But it's at least one of them out there. If he ever sees this video, no shade. All right, I done talked enough. Let's get into the video. Lonnie David Franklin
got discharged too, and he started
There's not a lot of information about his childhood online. And so we don't know
Yeah,
much
bummer.
of what
He
his
was
home
discharged
life
'cause he
is
did something
about,
weird.
but we do know that he was born on August 30th
They
of
need to start doing
1952,
background checks on people
making
whenever they
him
get
a third class.
discharged
And
to see
so
what they
that
got discharged
obviously has
for.
a lot to do
Because ain't no way.
with this. Yes, Virgos, today is your day.
It
Lonnie
just
grew up
Lord.
in South Central LA, and after high
That's
school,
a
he
shame though.
joined
People
the
like if you
Army
get
as a
discharged for
cook.
something
But
serious, I
he
think you
ended
should go
up
to
getting
jail.
discharged in
They just discharged
1975
him.
because a
Like,
year
okay,
prior
right
to
now,
that,
like,
in
how about
April
now?
of
You go to jail.
1974,
I know
he's
somebody who
stationed
got
over in
discharged
Germany, and a
for
group of
weed.
him and his Army buddies are
And
hanging
they didn't go to
out.
jail. They just got a charge, but they didn't go to
Doing all of the
jail
things, just having themselves a merry old time. Now, apparently, all three of them had this real little trifling spirit on them because they decided to leave the
Dang.
bar, get into the car.
Damn.
They
Somebody
see
said
this
I'm not gonna
woman
get no
as they're going
man.
down
I
the
know.
street, and
It's
decide
okay.
they're going to try to
I'm
kidnap
okay
her. This woman was not
with
trying to
that.
go down without a fight, so she
Let me
begins.
just go for the house, you know
She's
what I mean?
screaming, she's yelling. Her screaming was just bringing on too much attention for them to be successful in their little abduction. So they decide to abort the mission and go on and leave her there. Unfortunately, though, this failed attempt does not deter them from their determination of kidnapping someone that night, and so they pretty much just move on to the next person that presents the opportunity. They spot a 17-year-old girl by the name of Ingrid. She's standing at a train station by herself, just waiting on the next pickup when the guys pull up alongside her. One of the men jumps out of the car, holds a blade to her neck, and forces her into the vehicle. They then drive off to a secluded field where each of the men take turns violating her leg for hours. And as if that is not bad enough, Lonnie then takes out a camera and takes pictures of the girl after the fact. The three men then drop her off and they go on about their business like nothing had happened. The next morning, Ingrid goes down to the police station to report the incident. It takes a little time, but ultimately they are able to identify the three men and also charge them for their horrific actions. When they go to court, as the woman is giving her account of the incident and the night, Lonnie can't even look at this woman. Like, he has his head down, he's looking over at the wall, child. He should have been ashamed of himself, but I don't think that's what it was. When it was time for the men to speak for themselves, they all got up there trying to convince the German court that the night did happen, but it was in fact all consensual, and she was pretty much just lying. Their defense teams tried to push this narrative and this angle as the true version of events in order to support this claim. They pointed out the fact that she had minimal defense wounds. Other than a few cuts on her abdomen, she really had no other injuries. And her reasoning for this was that she was afraid to fight back. She didn't know what they were going to do, what they were capable of. And so she just didn't fight them too much in an effort to save her life potentially. So that was the reason for that. Fortunately, all three men are found guilty and they are convicted. Lonnie is only sentenced to 3 years, 4 months in prison, and as a result of his guilty verdict, he also was discharged from the Army. So they pretty much kicked that girl out. He also got off kind of easy. They were very lenient with him because of his mild-mannered demeanor. They felt like he was not the mastermind behind the whole thing. In fact, they stated that he would likely not have done anything like this or been involved if he wasn't pressured to do so by the other two guys. It was the opinion of the court that Lonnie was less likely to reoffend and was not all that dangerous on his own. He was just, too nice of a guy, which seems to be the theme of opinions for just about everybody who knew Lonnie. After being discharged, Lonnie returns to his neighborhood in South Central, and people really liked him. He was both well-liked and well-known. Lonnie was that guy that you called on if you needed anything. Like, he literally could help out with anything that you needed. If you needed your car fixed, he was a shade tree mechanic. If you needed a deal on something, you go to him and you tell him what you want, give him a couple of days. He lets you know when you can pick up and what the cost will be. And nobody ever asked questions about how he got it, y'all. And of course, he never told. That's how little Lonnie operated, and that's what he was known for, honey. That's how he got down. Baby, don't ask no questions. Do you want this microwave? for $20 or not. He was also the neighborhood loan shark. Anytime somebody needed to borrow some money, he was more than happy to help them out. Lonnie lands a job as the trash collector for the LA Department of Sanitation, and he also
No, just
meets
rice,
and marries
chicken,
a young woman, but he is with his first wife.
sour cream
Allegedly,
and cheese.
she got strung out
You
because
don't
you know
like
it is
the
the
corn?
80s. And it is
I'm
South Central,
very
so
plain.
if you know, you know. I really only know because I watch Snowfall, so there's that. They were very much given Wanda and Leon, if you watch the show. Her habit became a lot. He would give her money from, his paycheck in order for her to pay the bills. The problem is she was taking the money and going and buying her little drug of choice. She was not paying the bills. So he was coming home and the lights were off and he was very much upset about it. But he really loved her and he wanted to make it work. It really bothered him seeing her like that, and it was a lot for him to deal with at that time. Y'all see how Leon be told over Wanda still? To this day. This first wife really takes him down through there for a while before their marriage is dissolved. And this reportedly left a very, very sour taste in his mouth in regard to anybody who drank or smoked or did anything like that. He really he didn't want anybody around him that drank, not even beer, not even alcohol. He didn't want any of it around him. He was very vocal about his disdain for anybody who partakes in any of the things. He
Yes,
also
I ain't
develops
do
this
nothing.
very strong disdain for women involved in the sex work business. Child, which tells me his wife was out there selling about pounds. Why else would you be there?
About
Literally nothing else makes sense to me in my mind. Now, about mid-80s, the LAPD, they became aware that there was an apparent serial killer on the loose who was targeting Black women. All of the women were either involved in sex work or they had addictions or a combination of the two. They give the person that they're looking for the nickname Southside Slayer. During this time, the public image of a serial killer is a white man who goes out targeting predominantly white women. So this is the image that they have in their mind for the person that they're looking for. They just thought maybe he just got a different palette than the others. But he certainly in their mind was a young to middle-aged white man. And y'all, let me tell you how trifling the LAPD is or was at this time. They use the code NHI during this time. I'm not sure if this is still a thing, but I know while this was going down, a lot of the cases had the code NHI on them, which is the acronym for no humans involved. And so they would use this code on cases if the victim was somebody of color or someone involved in sex work or had like an addiction, they would put this code on the case and put that case on the back burner. Police also failed to warn the public that Black women in the South Central area are pretty much being hunted and they should watch out. As these women were being found, they didn't even get media coverage. Like the news of what was going on around town was pretty much just spreading via word of mouth. None of these crimes made it into the LA Times or even the local news for that matter. It also did not help that Richard Ramirez was out there running amok during this time. Richard Ramirez was out there wreaking havoc. He was specifically targeting like upscale white women who had money or influence to some degree. And all of that was all over the news. All over the LA Times, all over
That's what they talking
the
about?
local newspapers, just everywhere. The very obvious indifference to the crimes committed against the women who were poor or women of color who had addictions or involved in sex work, this really added a lot of tension to the already tense and fragile relationship between the LAPD and like the minority neighborhoods. They just felt like it was very much blatant disrespect and disregard for their lives. They did not appreciate being treated as though their lives did not matter because they did not come from the same place, share the same skin tone, or have the material things that these women that Richard Ramirez was targeting, that they had. As a result of this, the group called the Black Coalition Fighting Black Serial Murderers, they formed and decided that they're gonna take matters into their own hands. As far as like warning the people, spreading awareness, actually trying to find out who this is. They wanted to make sure that every woman that fit the description of the type of women that were being targeted that they were made aware that this was going on and that they needed to be safe. They also put together a fund so they could offer an award for anybody who could come forward with information regarding the case leading to an arrest. They were very committed to finding out who this person was and getting them off the streets. They were out there on the streets handing out flyers. Most of their groundwork was done in the South Central area, but honey, they little flyers was making it all the way up into the Beverly Hills. When the LAPD caught wind of this group, they didn't really like the fact that this little ragtag bunch of misfits from the hoods of South Central had come together and were really making them look bad. They were out here doing more than the LAPD had done, so they didn't like that too much. And of course, the group was very vocal in pointing out the fact that, they weren't receiving any media coverage and that nothing was really being investigated. At this point, the LAPD, they officially launched an investigation finally to look into what was happening. Little did they know though, their assailant was not a white man, child. Not at all. There was no white man targeting black women, but Gary Hynek was out there in them streets heavy, so that's not entirely true. But in this particular case, they were looking for actually a black man targeting black women. And not just any old black man. A black man that had worked as a shade tree mechanic, not just in his neighborhood, but actually down to the precinct on 77th Street. Yes, this man was hired several times to go down to the police station and work on the squad cars. Sometimes their personal vehicles, because they knew he was somewhat a mechanic with reasonable prices. And he was no stranger to the local police. He had actually been arrested several times for possession of stolen goods, other little theft charges. I know he was the neighborhood booster. So he had gotten caught up a couple of times with that, but they had no idea or clue or inkling that this man was behind any of the killings. And little Lonnie had been quite a busy boy. He claimed his first victim in August of 1985 down in South LA. Deborah Jackson, she was a 29-year-old cocktail waitress who he abducted while she was on her way home from a friend's house. August 10th, she is found and she has suffered 3 gunshot wounds to the chest. This was Lonnie somewhat testing the waters. After he did this, he decided he wanted to lay low and see if he was going to actually get away with it. So for an entire year, nothing else happened. He actually decides to go on and give love another try. He meets a woman by the name of Sylvia. Within a year, the two are married and they go on to have a total of 2 children. They have a son and a daughter. Their relationship was pretty rocky, off and on. She would leave for like months at a time. She ultimately ends up just leaving him for good altogether. Lennon was also a pretty decent father. He was no stranger to any of the locals. Everybody within the neighborhood knew him. He was very social. He would oftentimes spend time outside of his house, standing under the garage, talking to the other little middle-aged men in the neighborhood. He appeared to be so average and so normal. He's talking to the neighbors, kind of getting a feel for what they thought, bringing up the subject and chatting about it. After months go by and they child don't even read the newspaper, people are really not even talking about it as much. There doesn't appear to be any kind of open, active investigation where they're trying to find the assailant. He starts to feel comfortable. Like, you know what? Maybe I can do this again and get away with it. And so he decides to go after victim number 2. Almost an exact year to the date that Deborah was found, August 12th of 1986, Henrietta Wright is found discarded just a couple of miles down from where they found Deborah. The crime itself, it was very similar to the one committed against Deborah, so they knew that most likely they were looking for the same guy. The only difference with this one is the fact that he actually sexually assaulted this victim, and he had not done that with the previous one. 2 days after this, right when the police are noticing a pattern here, establishing an MO, victim number 3 is found, and it completely throws them off. The pattern is broken, and they're confused. The thing is, in the mid to late 80s, there were a number of serial killers who were all active within the California area. I don't know what was in the water in California during this time. I don't know what y'all had going on, but it really was a lot of them. And most of them were preying on women. Many of them have said in interviews after the fact that they felt like during this time it was very easy to pick up a stranger. Like, it literally took no effort to convince a stranger to either go home with you or get into your car. So they felt like it was just a free-for-all hunting ground there. Like, the victim pool was just plentiful. It was just way too easy for them to pick somebody up and do what they wanted to do.
Pretty
On
sure.
average, between 1985
I'm
and
pretty sure it was easy.
1989, there were 800
Back then, yeah.
homicides per year. That is a whole lot. It wasn't until like news started to spread about what was going on and people becoming fearful and just a lot more conscious of their actions and the situations that they could possibly be putting themselves in harm's way. And also with all of this going on and a lot of them, the majority of them targeting the same type of person, it made it damn near impossible for them to determine what victim belonged to who. So they were very, very dependent on MOs. They were having a rather difficult time determining whose victim was whose. However, the case of the Grim Sleeper, it was slightly different than everybody else. Most people were discarding their victims alongside highways and in random fields, like in the open. He was hiding his after the fact. He would take them to dark alleys that were not frequented. He often used dumpsters as a dumping site, and even still, he wouldn't just leave them out in the open. He would cover them up with like dirty carpet, mattresses sometimes. He would always make sure that they were not in plain sight. And of course, when determining whether or not these were his works, I mean, it was the fact that all of his victims were Black and most of the people were targeting the white girls. His victims were also typically female. So when they find this man, this really throws them off. 36-year-old Thomas Steele, he was allegedly a pimp from San Diego visiting South Central. He had been found right in the middle of an intersection. And so this also did not fit the pattern because typically everybody else was hidden. And granted, nothing about this mimics or resembles his other works. Police are still determined that the same guy is responsible for this guy, which I don't think that they believe that. I think they just didn't feel like doing the work, and so they were just like, you know what? He struck again. This time it's a guy. It's like, no, sis. Somebody got into an argument that went bad in the middle of the street. Roughly 5 months or so later, in January of 1987, 23-year-old Barbara Ware, she is found in similar circumstances as the first two women. And police know for sure who is behind this one, like without a shadow of a doubt. All right, so I didn't like the direction that the under was heading, so I had to I'll delete that, girl. You don't pretend like it never happened, okay? Police find Barbara Ware and 3 months go by. They're still no closer to finding out who was responsible than they were on day one, okay? And nobody was really talking about it. And by this time, Lonnie is really feeling himself because he is down there working at the police station on these cars. Like, he literally is hiding in plain sight, and they don't suspect a thing. No one suspects a thing. Even after comments that he had made to people in the neighborhood about how it was really him and he was cleaning up the streets, they still just laughed it off and was just like, hey, you so crazy. Like, they did not take him as serious. So, of course, he continues to do what he's doing. He goes on to his next victim, which is a 26-year-old woman by the name of Bernita Sparks. He had actually spotted Bernita walking down the street on the way to the store to buy her some cigarettes and minding her business. He abducts this woman and then he discards her in a dumpster after the fact. And this attack was particularly brutal because he had not really caused like much physical harm to these women. But this woman in particular suffered a brutal attack. He next targets a 26-year-old woman by the name of Mary Lowe. Mary was down at the bar on Halloween night celebrating with her friends, just having a good time. At some point toward the end of the night, when she is on her way home, she is picked up by Lonnie, who either forced her into the vehicle or offered her a ride. And she accepted and then got into the vehicle. Don't know which one was the case. And the very next day, she is found in an alley, the same alley that he had dumped his previous victim in. This particular case is a pivotal moment for investigators because there's a witness who had seen her getting into a red-orange 1979 Ford Pinto, one with a white racing stripe on the hood. Not only that, the witness was also able to provide a description of the assailant, which was that he was male, he was young, and he was Black. And the investigators was like, what? Black? Like, are you sure he wasn't just tan, sis? Are you sure? We've been looking for a white guy all along. They were perplexed at the news. But still, even with that information, they weren't any closer to finding out exactly who the guy was, and women were still popping up all over the city under the same condition. 3 years into his spree, on November 20th, 1988, mother was just 8 days old. A young woman by the name of Anitria,
Yeah,
she
they was
is headed to a friend's house to a
Yeah, I
party.
wouldn't
She's
expect it
dressed
either.
up, ready to go have a good time. She was walking down the street, headed to her destination, when suddenly a
Well,
well-dressed
you
man in a
because we
car
looking for
pulls up
weird, like,
alongside
old
her
dudes.
and
Yeah,
offers her a
right.
ride the rest of the way. She politely declines the offer. She's like, no, thank you. Then he makes this strange comment. His response to her declining his offer for a ride is that Black women think too highly of themselves. And she is like, wait, like, I just don't want to ride. So she's feeling like it's not like that. And at this point, she decides to just go ahead and take the ride. She didn't want him to feel like it was like that. Baby, do you know I would not have cared what he felt like? Now, baby, you would have just had to pull off with your attitude, because I would have politely treated you like a fixture on the wall, child. Fire hydrant on the street. I would not have paid him a normal mind. However, the story ain't about me. Her first impression when she gets into the car is, okay, this is nice. Like, the inside was really clean, immaculate, it was beautiful,
They said
well
they
kept.
said she
It was a
about to
very
eat.
nice car. She decides to compliment him on his car just to give like an icebreaker, because he really wasn't talking and she just felt like it was a little awkward. So she compliments him on the car. She is making comments about how obviously well maintained the car is, whatever else you say to a man with a nice car. From that point, a little conversation starts up. They're going back and forth, and the conversation is kind of steady, but she noticed that even with him talking, it's still awkward. Like, something is still very much off with this man, but she couldn't put her finger on it. She's like, it's just weird. She's like, I don't know if he's just awkward or if I'm just uncomfortable, but for whatever reasons, this was uncomfortable. And he struck her as a little bit odd. They began to talk about the party, and she just being nice, and because he was already well dressed, she decides to offer him to join her at the party. She felt like that was the courteous thing to do. As he was giving her a ride to the party, she's like, you want to come inside for a second, get you some meatballs and rotel, you can. But honey, all of her courteousness and her niceness kind of went out the window when he started making these stops, these random stops, and talking to people. And she's like, I got somewhere to be. Like, you're about to make me miss the whole party. Finally, after he makes a stop and spends just too much time talking to whoever he stopped to talk to, he gets back into the car and she says something to him about it. She hears him say something, but she doesn't quite hear what he said. And when she asks him to repeat himself, he goes, bitch, I'll shoot you again. And she like, again? I've been shot? As soon as she realized she'd been shot, sis passes out, blacks out completely. Anitra wakes up to a flash in her eyes, like a camera flash. And when she opens her eyes, she realizes that this man is now straddled on top of her and is taking pictures of her. He gets off and then he begins to drive, and she's just begging him, like, let me go. I won't go to the police. I won't tell anybody about it. Like, just drop me off at the hospital, pull off. I won't tell them a thing. He does not listen. Instead, he is driving and opens her door and throws her out, like pushes her out of the moving vehicle, obviously expecting her not to make it. But miraculously, this woman gets up, walks a couple of blocks to a friend's house. When she gets there, of course, the friend rushes her to the emergency room. She then goes to the police with a full description of the man who had attacked her. She described him as looking very neat, very tidy. She said that he was very much like geeky. He wore a black polo shirt that was tucked into his little khakis. When I tell you she gave a full description, sis gave a full and detailed description for sure. Not only does she provide them with a detailed description of the man himself, she also gives a very detailed description of the car. A beautiful red-orange 1979 Pinto with a white racing stripe painted across the top. Police run a ballistics test against the bullet that was retrieved from her chest, and they find that it matches several of the victims from the Southside Slayer. And so they know that this for sure is their guy. After he heard news that this woman was attacked and that she had lived, he decided to lay low. He was like, you know what? Let me not. He decided that he was just gonna lay low. There's always one that gets away. Just as normally as you and I, at least until things kind of simmer down. When talking to Anitra, they actually put together a composite sketch, and they made mention of it, but they never showed it to the public. Like, they literally just made it and stashed it away in a drawer somewhere. What was the reason? Over these 14 years, though, it does not leave his mind. He still wants to be out there, and all of a sudden, his thirst for child sinister behavior, it just becomes too much to bear. Since they held out for as long as he felt like he could, and it was time for him to get out there, and so he decides to strike again. This time, he targets a 15-year-old runaway by the name of Princess. Princess had run away from home, and she had been reported missing by her family on December 21st of 2001, and they had not seen or heard from her since. Unfortunately, though, she had turned to sex work as a means of earning money to provide for herself. Police instantly knew that this was the work of their Southside slayer that they were pursuing 14 years before. And at this point, they decided to just change his name from that to the Grim Sleeper because of the amount of time in between the crimes. She gets some media coverage, and they, of course, refer to him as the Grim Sleeper. And he, I guess, I don't know if he liked it and decided he was going to adhere to his name and move accordingly, but he goes dormant again for a whole solid year. But then, of course, he decides to strike again, this time targeting a 36-year-old woman by the name of Valerie. 4 years after Valerie, in January of 2007, 25-year-old Janicia Peters is found, and the DNA extracted from this crime scene came back as a match for DNA found on previous victims of the Grim Sleeper. Police knew that if this one particular little set of DNA was found on multiple victims and it did not match any of them, it had to be the DNA of their guy. By this time, DNA testing and the forensic science had progressed a lot further than where it was in the 80s. Furthermore, since 2005, they have been requiring everybody who had received felony charges, especially weapons charges, to submit a sample of DNA. So they're really feeling confident. They're like, you know what? The guy might be in our database. Let's run it. It comes back as a perfect match for no one. So at this point, they're like, you know what? Maybe we should broaden the spectrum just a little bit. They run the DNA again, this time not looking for a perfect match, but a match close enough where the person was a close family member, at least, of the guy that they're looking for. Now, at first, this is a bust as well. It doesn't turn up any results, but they are lucky when in 2008, the next year, a man by the name of Christopher is brought in and booked on weapons charges. His DNA sample flagged them as being a match for their guy. But they knew at his age, he couldn't possibly be the Grim Sleeper. He was just too young to be out here running amok in the 80s. He wasn't old enough. The DNA was so close, though, that it had to be his father. So that brings their attention to his dad, Mr. Lonnie Franklin Jr. Even still with this new lead, though, they were not that pressed to find him, honestly. 2 years go by, and they're somewhat keeping an eye on Lonnie, somewhat kind of not even worried about it, but finally, 2 years later, they are watching Lonnie. They're on a stakeout. Lonnie is having pizza down to the local pizzeria. They're watching him. He's one of those girls who do not eat the crust. I don't know who raised y'all like that, but you're supposed to eat the crust when it's good. And I don't understand people who don't, but that's a whole different video. You know what? Them folks probably can't be trusted. He was one of them people. As soon as he finishes his food, he
She been around here looking like I don't know.
Trust
me, her hair not even done.
That crust, and as soon as he gets out of there,
you see, just like how everybody been doing about in here, I swear to God, her hair was not done. My mom was asking her, so she's not gonna be in her hair? I'm like, damn, I'm the only person that do her hair now.
It comes back as a match, and they confirm definitively without a shadow of a doubt that he is.
He was like, but you just like me though, because my wig girl, she from Broward, and she went home, and I literally refused. Like, girl, ain't nobody lives in my head, but. I was like, nah, I'm getting hair depressed now. Now I need something, so I had to cheat.
Different women. Some of them were multiple pictures of the same woman.
Yeah, don't take it personal now. Don't beat me up now. I don't want to get beaten.
Of hours of videotapes that he had taken of these women. The images in the videos found within his house were of black women within a wide age range. There were teens, there were middle-aged women, there were older women, like just pretty much of all ages. The women were often nude in a lot of the images, and they were both conscious and unconscious. And some of the footage dated back 30 years. Police had such a difficult time identifying these women that they had to release a lot of the images to the public. Of course, they didn't use like the really graphic ones, but they did pick out 180 that were somewhat presentable. And they showed them to the public and asked for their help identifying the women if they knew who these women were at all to contact them. It's up and down that they tried to do it on long and hard.
I need to finish some more.
Meanwhile, Lil Lonnie is hit with 10
You doing good though. You want me to warm it up for you?
victim number. The total count is
I'm funny. I'm very funny.
obviously from the picture, but that was only 10 that they had solid evidence on, and so they decided to move forward with those 10.
It's okay.
Obviously enough to get you up out of these streets. Following his arrest, his lawyers argued that the DNA obtained through the pizza press, it should not be admitted into court. It should not be permissible because it constituted an illegal search, and that should not be allowed. They were not successful in having thrown out. I guess they figured it was worth a shot.
Thank you,
It
girl.
did not work.
You're the first person to buy me
Also
food.
tried to charge him in the case where the man was down the street, but there was no evidence really tying him to that at all. It was so different than his typical MO, so they were not
I be buying everybody's
other
video.
10 for the women.
That's how I
It
be
was
going, bro. I
the
be
one
going
teenage
broke
princess and none of the other women that were successful in getting a guilty verdict on those. His sentencing is held on August 10th of 2000.
So are you saying they don't care about me?
And at the time of his sentencing,
They don't care
the
about me.
prosecution presented 6
They probably
more
don't. They just
cases
be needing
that they
to-
have confirmed, like they're 100% sure. They have evidence of he's guilty for sure. He did this, and they didn't find this evidence until way after the
I
fact.
be getting some
They
like
had the
I
option
mean,
of still
I'm not gonna
adding
lie.
them, but this
Clients
would
like
have
y'all, my
potentially
clients like for this
pushed
shit,
out
y'all
his
been
sentencing and final decision on his trial, and so they didn't want to risk it. They were like, you know what, we already got it. We didn't spend enough time here. We want to let you know that we know that this was all you. They actually
That's why I
found
gotta
a
keep
couple
the
of
sale.
IDs
The
and
sale
other
going. You
personal
missed the sale
belongings
because
that belonged to two women
your
that had
your
been
people,
reported
but
missing
you still got it on
and had
sale.
physically never been found and never seen again inside of his garage. So they knew that he was
I need you to change your
responsible.
hairstyle. Get
Additional
something
6
different.
victims added to the roster.
You could get some
Please,
boho
they've been
feeding,
almost
like you get some
30
boho
years
braids with
he
the
spent
tribal
out
braids,
here in these
like
streets.
cornrows
He
in the
was
front, plaits in the
61
back,
when
and
he
you
was
can still get
apprehended,
boho.
and then 2 weeks shy of
Or
his
you
64th
can
birthday,
get,
when
you
he
remember
got
them
his
locks
little
that you got?
brand new set of
You can get those with boho and do them smaller.
Okay, but he's hauled on down to his holding cell where he's gonna wait on that good old faithful day in 3 years.
Next time, I'm gonna just let you.
It's 147 witnesses, so what you saying?
I'm gonna let you do whatever it is you want to do.
Just try to
Except
for as
for
long
like
as he's
twist.
governor. As long as he's
No,
in
back.
office, none
Oh,
of
straight
that
back.
will go down. Which actually affected over
You hate them
700
straight. I hate them too. I don't think they fit my face.
Trifling Lil Lonnie,
Exactly,
even
and
joins
that's
us in the fact that he has technically evaded
Even though you say
fatal
I
punishment
did
for his
know.
actions. But
I be telling my stylist that she like, nigga,
said,
nah.
not so fast, my girl. Within a
Compliment
year,
my
he
forehead
is
a lot,
found
so.
inside of his cell unresponsive. Now we don't know if nature decided to get their girl up out of here, or if somebody just snuck in the cell and snuffed him on the low, and that was it. Whatever the case, on March 29th of last year, 2020, if you in the future and you need some clarification there, that was his last day with us. As for the aftermath, his wife Sylvia, she
Sometimes I be
been,
wanting like,
of course,
but lately
on
I've
and
been
off
like
with
my
him
mood
throughout
been
the years,
better.
and eventually she ended
Yeah.
up leaving him.
It's
So nobody
okay,
really
though,
gave her any
like,
slack. She
yeah,
didn't
I
know
been,
anything
like,
that was
doing
going on.
the
She was a
therapy and
nice little
stuff.
school teacher,
So it's
who
been
went to church
working.
all the time,
Yeah.
and she didn't want nothing to do with any of the things.
Trust me, I
Now they
know
say
my
she
needs too.
will go off on you
Yeah.
if you
But
try
I've
to
been
approach her
feeling
with
ways.
this mess.
I've been listening to my little
So tread lightly
affirmations
if
and
you
stuff
see
like
that
that. I've been
issue.
feeling
But for
better.
the most part, when the news hit, like the neighborhood, they didn't really give her a hard time. It was just like reporters randomly coming through, things like that, like those type of people bothering her. She still lives in the same neighborhood and she's completely unbothered. You know what's so crazy? This case has a
I'm
lot
trying
of
to figure out my
a
next
lot of
cut. Bro,
similarities
I think I look good with my little cut.
case.
I gotta show you it.
If you
Yeah,
are
you
familiar
do.
with
I was
him,
gonna
I've
ask you
already
something.
done a video on it.
Yeah.
Put it in the iCards if I remember it. It'll pop up if I
Everybody
remember.
been telling me I look good with it, but girl, I
What's
don't know.
crazy is
You know,
that
sometimes when
a
you cut
year
your hair,
after
you
Lonnie
know,
commits
yourself.
his final crime, Anthony emerges from the
That's why it wasn't my
trenches
first
of
credit.
Ohio and he
How
starts
short
doing
did
the
you
same
cut yours?
shit.
Like
Like,
really short?
it's like he passed the torch. It
The
reminds me of that
first time
moment
I
on
cut
Child's
it, yeah,
Play where
'cause I did it
Charles Lee
myself.
Ray's soul
But then
is
after I
leaving
got
his
the
body
day
and
after my
jumps into
wedding,
the good
I
guy
went to
doll
the
and
salon
carries on
in
the
the resort,
madness.
and they cut
Yeah,
it.
but
They
I
only
guess
cut
it's
like
flavors.
all
They're
the
both very
damage
disgusting
ends.
human beings, honestly.
Look at you trying to, so imagine how I feel.
And also this video, please don't forget to give
I know my
video a
parents
thumbs
gonna be
up on
shocked
the way I said
next
I
time
done
they
the
see me.
hard
They're like,
part.
oh,
I did all the
you
work, putting it
gay.
together, doing all the research, filming, editing,
I
all
remember
the
when I
things.
first cut my
All you have to do
hair.
is go like
That was
and
when my
reels,
parents
yeah,
knew I like
like, y'all
girls.
just don't
And
know
my dad was like,
how
oh,
much
you
that
want to
really
be
does
walking
help.
around here looking
Share
like a
video
little
with a
boy.
friend. Thank you
Like a
again, y'all,
tomboy.
for over 100K.
He told me I look like a boy with my
Like,
hair cut low. I'm like, okay, thank you.
Don't forget
Maybe that's the
somebody,
look I was going for.
anybody claim this pride. As always,
LOL.
I appreciate you so much for spending
But
time with
luckily they
me,
not like
and
that
I
no
look
more.
forward to seeing you
That's
again on Thursday.
I think I was their child where they toughened me up, but then they realized that she never gonna change. So now they're not as hard on my little brothers.
And Ronald, why do we want to call him?
Shit, I don't know. My little brothers, like, they like the same sex. I don't know how my dad gonna react.
I mean,
I mean, my dad not gonna hate you, but it's just gonna be like, you know, some people they just like, you can't be doing it in my house though.
And it takes time for them to accept
Yeah.
it
a lot of the cases
They should be over it now because they had to deal with me. I remember, bro, I used to be one of those kids that had Facebook. I remember I got caught texting girls, and every time I would get caught, and I would just keep doing it.
But they feel like
And for me,
spreading awareness and making the
my
people
grandma always
aware.
knew.
It's like making spreading awareness on
Because
the
I had like
So they
these
had
set
quite a
of
bit of
friends in
reach.
high school, and then they just turned on me. You know, and one of them
The
was
details of
like
the
me.
crime scene
And
were
they told
very.
people's.
Yeah, because we had like the parents conference.
That was back in the Dominican Republic, or
No,
here?
that was here.
And they snitched on you?
Yeah, they snitched on me in front of my
For
grandma.
being gay? For liking girls?
30 shit.
Yep, in front of my grandma.
Right? It was
I was like,
I was about to say he had been left
Nobody,
right
man, I used to get
in
caught.
section. No.
Man, I remember.
He had
My
been
mom,
left
they thought
right
that
in
shit
the
was funny, but
center
they
of
was
the
like, cause I used to tell girls like, you know, I used to be freaky in the messages too.
I'm not liking this from the hour.
So it used to just be so funny.
Yeah. So
And here I was, fucking 13 years old.
Goodness. Trying to find a black guy. Now,
Somebody
this
said it's okay to
particular
like
case
girls.
is a very
Duh.
pivotal one.
Hello, I'm married
What
to
is
one.
pivotal? Exactly.
We was talking about,
As
well,
soon
me
as you
and
realize
my
you've been
girl was
shot,
talking
this
about
passes
stuff like
out,
that.
blacks out completely.
Yeah.
Some shit I do. I've been shot. Like, girl, yes.
Pink dress would be nice.
Now, I did hear.
I never seen
that
like
oftentimes
a
when you
girly
shot,
girl
you're the
wedding.
one that
Like,
hits
you know, I haven't seen one in a
Who's
while.
been shot, but I never asked them.
Like, we're two
I don't think
lesbians,
it's
like
true. If
girly
you
girls.
shot, let me know in the comments. No, that's probably not okay to ask y'all. That's probably very triggering for
She
you.
posting her
When
videos.
Anitra gained
You love this show for real?
regained.
I haven't seen her, but
No, we got some
Yeah, I like
small,
her too.
cute
She got
little
personality.
thugs in the
You gotta
neighborhood.
give
They're
her,
new, and I hope they're not like those other fucking birds.
Brittany, Vaughn.
I'll let you know. Time targeting a 36-year-old. Y'all have been
I just
asking
can't
me for
imagine.
these
That's why I
girls.
stay my ass home. I can't imagine.
The show put it in the description box today. It's down here today.
I can't
And
imagine
it's like
whatever
a
the girls
cross
went through.
match between all the scenes. If that makes sense, does that fucking make sense? I need to say that over. Similar matches like familial. Is the word familiar? Familial. Familial. Lonnie Franklin Jr. That's his name, right? Yeah, I think it's Lonnie David Franklin. Child. Following his arrest, his argued, what? His sentencing is held on August 10th in 2006. No.
I've been using this. I think I told you that last time.
What?
I've been using this deodorant that don't got no aluminum in it.
You like it?
I like the smell of it. I can't get copyrighted. Sorry.
You took it with you?
I did. I was Oh, copyright me on YouTube. I could be paying no money.
And I've been with triplets, I've been with twins, I've been with so long, where do I begin?
No more copyright.
On as Tina by her friends and family, and just pretty much everybody that knew her. She's there on an athletic scholarship. Tina is one of their star athletes. She had always been into sports. She loved basketball and everything about it. She liked the camaraderie of being on a team, just the whole team dynamic, all of the things, right? Tina also had one of those personalities that was very likable, very outgoing, really helped boost the overall morale of the team. And she loved basketball so much that in her free time, she would volunteer at one of the local high schools as a basketball coach. She is very well known and very well liked, not only amongst the other athletes, but just around campus in general. Like, a lot of people knew her. and many people loved her. Going into her junior year, she had made arrangements to live in student housing, like these apartments off campus, in an effort to not have a complete stranger as a roommate. She was actually planning on having one of her teammates as a roommate, but that
I'm telling you,
unfortunately
these
does
blue
not
strings
pan
taste so
out.
good
So
to me.
then
You ever
it's
tasted
left
one?
up to the
What?
student
This.
housing this apartment
They
to
taste so
choose
good.
a roommate.
yeah, I had
And
those
they really
before.
tried to pair people up as roommates who
I
had
don't like
like
the
a lot of
chocolate one.
similarities.
Yeah, I don't
People
like
they felt
chocolate. I
like,
usually like
judging by, I
insurance. Like,
guess,
I be
their
drinking
background,
insurance.
No,
personality
they used to do my
types,
shit.
pair people up like that.
Yeah, I
That they
love
felt
the
like were a
insurance.
good match and could live together, comfortably. So they choose a roommate for her, and she's pretty much fine with it. Tina had one of those type of personalities where she pretty much got along with everybody, so she wasn't too concerned about not getting along with her roommate. She makes it to the apartment first, she chooses her room, and she begins to just, unpack and settle in. 18-year-old Shanterica Madden, she's also arriving the same fall semester to NTSU, and she is a freshman. She's a criminal justice major, and she's just really excited about going away to college. If you've ever gone away from college, baby, you know what that feels like. Like, it's super exciting to, be off on your own and be in a new place and just all of the things that come along with that. Now, unlike Tina, who is very outgoing, she's very lively, she has a very people-friendly personality, Shanterica is very quiet, she's very reserved, and she's described as being somewhat of a geek or a nerd, if you will, if that's not a derogatory term. Child, I was a nerd too, so don't take offense. She's one of those type of people who really come off as standoffish until they get a chance to know you and they warm to you and then you
I
get
used
to
to do
see
the
her
thing where I used
personality.
to
Once
know
she
you
gets her
cheating on
guard
me, so
down,
I
she
give
gets to
fake
know you and she's
answers.
comfortable. She's super friendly, very loving, and very sweet. Shanterica is also very, very close with her mother. They have an extremely close relationship. This is the first time she's really going to be away from her mom. She hoped that her roommate was somebody that she could relate to, someone who was somewhat like her, or at the very least, somebody that she could enjoy living with. But it'd be an added bonus if the two really clicked, formed a connection, possibly a friendship, and could hang out. Up until this point, the only thing that she had been told about her roommate was that they had been paired together because they had a similar background and they both had come from the same hometown, which is Memphis, Tennessee. So Shanterica is really looking forward to getting there and just finding out who the person is. She enters the apartment and there she is, the roommate, Clintina Stewart. Tina immediately introduces herself and she lets Shanterica know because she already arrived, she had already chosen a room, and she hoped that, she didn't have an issue with the room that she is now left with. She then walks Shanterica over to her room, which is significantly smaller than the other room, but Shanterica really didn't mind at all because, like I said, this is the first time she's out on her own, this is the first apartment, she's just excited to have her own space. So she's really not bothered by this at all. She puts down things that
I'm
she's
not
very
tired yet,
needing,
y'all.
and she
I'm not
immediately
tired.
just goes to finish unpacking the rest of her belongings. The first night in the apartment together, the two ladies are pretty much just doing their own thing. Tina's in her room listening to music. She has a nice little calm vibe going. She is decorating, hanging her things up on the wall. Shanterica's also in her own room, but she's kind of just skimming through her textbooks and also settling in the last of her things. Tina then decides to initiate conversation to sort of break the ice. She notices that Shanterica's a little shy and she's the exact opposite. She doesn't mind getting the ball rolling between the two so that there is not this just awkward silence or just awkward energy between the two of them at all. They have to live together. Tina decides to create a space for the two of them to just get the opportunity to know each other. Their personalities are obviously very different, but they do share some similarities as far as their background. Both ladies are from Memphis, Tennessee. Both of them are the first of their families to go to college, and both of them are really excited to be there, just excited about the school year. And although it's not super apparent that the two of them would probably be friends or, hanging out together or into the same thing, the vibe between them is very positive, and so they're off to a good start. And both ladies are relieved to find that the person that they be sharing their living space with turned out to be a pretty cool person. But 2 weeks into them living together, the ladies begin to learn of ways that they're also very, very different. Tina will come home and find that things that belong to her have been utilized, presumably, of course, by her roommate, because who else is there? No one. And this sort of bothered her. She didn't mind so much sharing, but she felt like It was just common courtesy and respect for the person to ask to utilize her belongings before just using them. And so she addresses this with Shanterica and lets her know, this is not okay. Ask me first. Don't just use my stuff. Shanterica has no choice but to just apologize and abide by this request because these things belong to Tina. But she did feel like it was kind of petty. She felt like anything that she had in the apartment that was within the shared space, she would not mind if Tina used them, whether she asked or not. So she didn't understand why Tina was making this a big deal. Another something that really bothered Tina about Shanterica was the fact that Shanterica was an queen and she would like her to be. Tina really liked a clean space. She did not like things left out.
And I was like, yeah, sure. But after a while, it's like we both work at the same job. You don't have any money to buy your own pads.
None of the things. Like, she liked to keep a nice, clean, tidy house at all times. She didn't understand that if she could pick up after herself and clean as she goes along, it shouldn't be an issue for anybody else to do the same. Why
you gotta have a period every month?
Cannot do the same thing. Shanterica, on the flip side, she would oftentimes leave additional
girl, it's giving big back
out of place in the common area with the intention of picking up after class. If she was in a rush to get to campus and had her go glass of juice something in the morning, she would just leave it in the sink job and hit the road and say she'd just deal with it later. And this really, really annoyed Tina because she felt like you should have respect for me as your roommate not to leave the common area unclean. She decides to address Shanterica about this as well and let her know, like, this is not okay.
She do give off like she dirty.
Living space.
I don't know, maybe I just
peacefully and comfortably.
Yeah, she do give off.
I need you to not.
That one look more. She play basketball. She look more cat.
And then when Tina returns home from school and finds her summer,
she give off them girls that are missing.
Okay, without her permission. And she's already had the conversation with Shanterica about
the
not
ones that
touching
you well
her
dressed and
things.
everything.
She is really pissed. Tina then decides to take a stack of little sticky notes, write her name on them, Shanterica's name on some, and literally label everything inside the refrigerator. She then separates their food where hers is on one side, Shanterica's is on the other side, so it could be no kind of confusion. And to really
I told y'all, I didn't tell you what happened yesterday.
Message out there that although we share a living space,
promise you,
that's it. That's all we share up in here. We're not sharing food or any of the things. Only touch what's yours. And child, you need any help remembering what's yours?
You can see
here are the sticky notes to let you know. Shanterica returns to the apartment and she sees this, and this kind of rubs her the wrong way. She feels like, again, Tina is being petty and that this was unnecessary to do, but what is she to do? Now, Shanterica's actions were not the only ones whose actions resulted in a little tension between the two of them. Like I said earlier, she was very, very quiet, very reserved, somewhat of a geek. If you will, she would spend a lot of her excess or downtime in her apartment, inside her room studying. Now, Tina, however, like a lot of college students, enjoyed spending her free time hanging out with friends and really just having fun. She had a pretty good social standing.
I think people been doing that
lately because they hold these very intimate, little get-togethers at the apartment. Not a bunch of people, not a party, just her and a couple of her classmates and teammates in the living room, just listening to music, joking, enjoying each other's company, having a good time. Now, unfortunately, these little gatherings would oftentimes happen while Shanterica was in her room trying to study. And so she was really, really bothered about it. She felt like this was very, very inconsiderate of Tina. And so she decides to voice her concerns and ask them to keep it down. With them
because the girl, first of all, why did she open her package that didn't belong to her? It was kind of intimidating. Talking about she thought it was hers. How if you only had one package that was delivered to you?
Furthermore, the walls in the apartment are super, super thin. So oftentimes when she would ask them to keep it down, she would hear them
we got a package. She got a package there. And instead of the girl simply just placing it in the house, she gonna say it was too heavy to just put by the door.
These comments directly to her,
we couldn't find the package
about her, like she's
we thought they did, but she instead of, and the FedEx people asked her if they would like them to just put it inside the house, and she told them no.
it continues
and just
to
give her
rise.
she's
And
racist.
there
Like
was
we just
friends
think
that
she's
even noticing a
racist
change in her
because I was in
demeanor
I was in her house,
at
right?
home,
And I had
or
a
just
bonnet
how
on.
she sounds
And
when
she
they
go,
are
why do you have a
talking to
shower
her
cap
and she
on?
is at home. She's a lot
Mind
less
you,
jovial.
this
She's
girl
quieter.
is a
Her tone is
history
more somber. Her
major.
energy overall
No
is just
way.
down.
I
And so
swear to
they
God, she asked
notice
me
that
why.
she's
I'm like,
very
baby,
much
this is my hair.
unhappy. On one
My
occasion,
bonnet
she
is
took
basically my
two of
hair
her
to me.
friends. They
She
got
asked me
some
why I got the
food
bonnet
and
on. I'm
decided they're
like,
gonna eat
okay.
at the apartment.
Then she
They go
says
into
that
the kitchen dining
I think my
area
hair. I
and
think she saw my hair or something like that, and she said it gives off
there are these sticky notes around
rainbow.
on
It gives off
everything.
gay.
Everything
That she told me
is
it gives
labeled
off
either
gay,
Tina or
like the
Shanterica.
LGBTQ.
There are also
I was
two
like,
sets of
okay.
everything. There's two
I was
things
like, okay.
that you typically wouldn't even need two of. For example, two toasters.
I was just like,
And
okay, I don't
these
know.
things
I'm
are
like, and she
also
was Asian too.
labeled. The friends are like, what's
So
going
I
on
was like,
here?
maybe
It's ridiculous
she's
that you guys
maybe,
can't
but I'm just
even
like, she did history,
share
so I'm thinking she.
anything. Like,
And I mean,
why
you've
y'all
been
got
around
your
black
toasters,
people,
sis?
you
Like,
never
what's
seen a
the
black person with a
deal?
bonnet
Even the
on.
dishes and the silverware weren't labeled.
But yeah, I had to
literally
text her for her and tell her like, yo, like this never happened when my other roommate stopped opening my stuff. I'm like, how did you open somebody else's package and think it was yours?
There's also
And your name wasn't on it.
reminder.
That's illegal too.
That says don't forget to
I'm
wash your
like-
dishes. Shantarica's friends are like, girl, this is ridiculous. Like,
So, I
why
guess
do
her
you
and her
look like
roommate
this?
beefing
To
now.
them, she brushes it off like,
The
oh,
same
it's
thing
not
with her
that big
other
of a deal.
roommates. They
Like,
were
we're
dirty.
cool.
They would
Things
leave
are alright. And in
trash.
all
They put trash
actuality, it did
by
bother
her
her.
door.
Like, she felt like
Because
it was
they don't
very
want their
petty
company
and
to know that they're
extreme
dirty.
for
So what they do
literally
is they put their
every
trash
spoon,
right by
fork,
her
and
door.
knife
And
to
because
be
she's so
labeled
soft
and
and gentle,
them
she don't
not
say
being able
shit.
to share
So I have to be the one to say
anything. They
shit.
sit down to eat, and
So
before
they
they
put the trash by her
finish,
door.
Literally a trash bag.
she
Not
walks
one
into the
trash
living
bag, but
space
two
on
trash
the way
bags
to the
of
kitchen,
stuff
and
as
she
in
sees the
pizza
group there.
boxes, food
Shanterica
stinks.
immediately
Like, and I'm
speaks
trying to make sure she
her,
take a
and
picture
she
of that shit.
introduces her friend.
And
So
clothes.
tries
She
to
had
introduce
one of the
her
girls
friend.
had her
Tina
panties.
looks up
Her
from her
panties right there by
phone.
her
She
door. I'm like,
tells
who
her, don't
who
forget to
clothes
wash
is this?
those.
Luckily they
Pertaining to the
left, but I'm
dishes
just
that
like,
they were using.
and y'all
And then she
inviting men
simply
over
just
there?
goes about her way. She
I'm
doesn't
like, I
address
don't
the
know which
friend's
man. I'm like,
trash.
any
She
nigga
don't
that's
wave
with y'all,
back.
like, they nasty too.
Ain't no, hey, how you doing?
Ain't no way I'm
None of the
finna
things.
go to a
The
girl
friends
house and
thought that
it's
was
just dirty.
that was
Like, it just
pretty
got
rude. And
trash,
not only
like
was it
trash
rude, they
though.
noticed that her tone of voice
That's like roaches and
was
stuff.
very stern. Like she was the authoritative figure here, and so they didn't too much like that. One of the friends finishes. He
But she
goes
never
to wash
cleaned
his
this room, ain't
hands
not
in the
dirty.
kitchen sink. And when Shanterica
She do be
notices
turning off
that
the
he
AC
used
though.
the
The
hand
AC hot
soap
as hell
for
in
dish
the
soap, they
house.
had TS.
I'm like, we in
She
Florida,
stresses
love.
out. She
This
was
is
like,
not.
you didn't use this one, did you? This one is
I'm
the
like,
one
she
that
turned off
you
the
were
whole
supposed
AC.
to use. That one is, it's not mine, it's Tina's.
That's why I'm
And
telling you,
her
I couldn't
friend's
have
like,
roommates. Because I swear to God, we
calm
would have
down.
fought. Like,
It's
we would have
not
physically
that big of
fought.
a
Like,
deal. But Shanterica
what you mean
is
you
like,
putting trash by my
actually,
door?
you wouldn't think that it was that big of a deal, but it is. And
Why did she
it's
move?
just really easier to coexist,
Girl,
abiding by this ground rule
people's-
that it is not yours,
they
you
very,
didn't
what's
buy
the
it,
word?
don't touch it. She
Overprotective?
then shows him
Yeah.
which hand towel he needed to
But I
use
mean,
to dry
once
his hands,
her
the one that
release
belonged
ends
to her,
again, I think then
and
she'll be
not
over
Tina. She was just so shaken in her little
And I want it so
spirit,
bad.
child, about him
Yeah.
using the
Yeah,
hand
company.
soap, that it kind of just ruined the whole mood. The friends' mood
I
was
do be
ruined
happy
too,
for
because they
people.
felt like she was
She
just
really
being
is.
extra.
She
Like this whole
basically- she
thing
got
was
the
just,
keys.
it was
She
just
really
weird.
I know.
One morning, Shanterica goes to the kitchen to grab her some breakfast.
Yeah.
And as she turns around, she notices a tall male figure standing behind her. And he's just like, hey, she is like, sir, what are you doing here? It actually really startles her because it's a strange man in your house.
I'm not gonna lie, I really just want to join.
When Tina hears the commotion, she immediately comes to the kitchen and she's just like, there's, no cause for worry. This is my boyfriend, Chrissy. Chrissy had actually spent the night, and I guess he was going to the kitchen to get him some juice too. Shanterica is pissed about this because she felt like it was just common courtesy for Tina to let her know
It's
if
simple. I just
somebody
got
would be
injured and
spending
they
the
never
night
gave me
inside their
my
apartment,
DOD. Like, they never
especially
gave me no
a
form
grown
like
man who to her is
basically what
just
it
a
is.
strange man. You might be familiar with him,
Yeah.
but to me he's still a stranger. Like,
But I
let
think
me
my foot
know.
it's gotten
This is
better.
not
I think
okay.
I'm
Tina,
able
however,
to-
does not
to
feel
reach
like
it.
she owes that to her. She
The double
feels
walk
like
gonna be
this is
easy
my
though, because I already did
apartment
it already.
just as well as it is yours, and so I don't have to
You remember your
run
first time
these
doing the
things
double walk?
by you.
Oh
And I can pretty
I
much
didn't know.
company.
I want to show you how I was doing.
Casey begins to spend
First of all, I had on the
more
wrong
time
panties.
at the apartment.
Because I didn't want to wear,
night.
I didn't want to wear no
And
grandma. I just want to wear grandma drawers today.
Presence
I'm
because
not wearing no
in her
grandma
mind, to
drawers
her,
today.
he's still just this strange
It was
man
just a
that's
hot
hanging
day.
out
Everybody,
at the
they was
apartment
just
all the
messing
time.
with me.
The living arrangements by this time, they had
People are meant
become
to be
very
funny though,
tense
but on
and
Fridays they be mean
uncomfortable
as
for
hell.
both of these young
They be ready to
ladies.
go
And for
home.
Tina, having Casey there provided a level of security and comfort that made the living situation a little more
Hey
bearable for
y'all.
her. So she was
They must
not
love
trying
me
to
because
have
it's
him
still
there
100
any
something
less
people in
and
here
be there
watching.
just with Shanterica in a very tense environment. Another month goes by with Casey spending more and more time at the apartment despite how uncomfortable Shanterica had said that his presence makes her. And to further add to the tension that had already been building consistently, he had begun, he wasn't dirtying up the apartment or extremely messy, but he was breaking some of the rules that Tina had set for Shanterica. And
We got rules.
Tina seemingly was not addressing them with him. This really,
And that's my
really
thing. I would
pissed
have to have
Shanterica off.
rules.
She felt like
we gotta take
if
the
it's
trash
me
out.
doing it, it's no issue, but when your boyfriend leaves his socks and shoes in the living room, it's not. And that's not fair. It's annoying. And Tina was not trying to hear Shanterica's complaints. She had a lot going on. Being a star athlete, keeping up with her grades, her
she was
volunteering
the
as a coach at a
problem.
local high school. She had a lot
Wait,
on
they
her
both
plate.
was the
As
problem.
the school year progresses, the stress of it all, it begins to take a toll on her. And she does what many of us have
Drop
done
out.
in the past and still do to this day. We utilize social media to
yeah.
express our thoughts and sometimes our frustrations.
I'm not gonna lie, I haven't done
And so
that
this
since
is
I
what
was
she began to do, but
I haven't done it since
unfortunately,
I was
in addition to tweeting about how
16, 17.
stressful
Yeah,
college
social
life
media
was
instead
for
of
her,
yeah.
she also
I be seeing people do it though. I be
expressed her
like, bruh,
grievances
really?
with her roommate.
I'm like,
Tina
listen,
would
bro,
tweet
people
things
just want to know your
like, I
business.
can't
They do not
stand
care
living
for
with
her
this girl. She's so dirty. She thinks that she has her mother here to pick up after her, and she doesn't. She'd also make disparaging comments about Shanterica's appearance and the way that she dressed. Mind you, Tina is pretty popular, so she has a nice little social status and a significant following, many of whom are also students at NTSU. And so this would really influence the ways that people who knew and favored Tina would treat or interact with Shanterica when they ran across her. It was also pretty embarrassing for Shanterica. At this point, she felt like Tina was bullying her. She also did not like that campus life had somewhat become an escape from the toxicity of their household, and now this was spilling over into her campus life and the internet, and it was just becoming a bit too much. At this point, the two of them just decided the best thing for them to do is just avoid the other as much as possible, and neither of them can wait for this year to be over and for them to get different housing arrangements. On the rare occasion that they would have the entire place to themselves, they would really revel in their solitude, child, and enjoy it. It was the only time that they felt at complete peace while within the apartment. Now, in one instance, Shanterica is the one who is home alone and she's enjoying it fully. She decides she's gonna take her a nice long shower and use up all the hot water and all of the things. She's in the bathroom taking her shower, and then she hears this noise that is obviously coming from within the apartment, but she knows that Tina is not there. So she's like, what's going on here? She listens.
That should be
And
scary.
then she hears more noise, and she's just like, what's going on? Who is here? She gets out of the shower, wraps a towel around herself, and decides she's going to go investigate. Now, as soon as she opens the bathroom door to go into the hallway, she sees a tall, dark figure who is obviously not Tina, and immediately freaks out. It actually turns out to be Casey, and although it's not some strange man who had broken in and was there to harm her, she is still very much irritated and very much upset at the fact that he was there without Tina. She's like, you should not be here. She's like, I don't even like when you're here with her. You damn sure shouldn't be here without her. This is not okay. He does apologize for scaring her though, and just lets her know he was there just to wait for Tina, who was on her way home. He wasn't being a creep or anything like that in any capacity. He just was headed to Tina's room to sit and wait for her. Shanterica, she does not care for his apology at all. She decides to call her mother and vent about the situation because she just, at this point, is tired of addressing this issue with Tina. It's not changing, and now he is here scaring the hell out of her while Tina is not even there. She doesn't know what else to do. She's just fed up. Her mother tells her, you know what, it is something that you can do actually. He is not supposed to be there like that all of the time. And so I'm going to reach out to the apartment manager in student housing to let them know that this is going on. And hopefully they can put a stop to it. Shanterica's mother reaches out to the apartment manager, who then reach out to Shanterica to get her statement. And Shanterica lets them know all of the things that have been going on that makes this living arrangement so uncomfortable. She's at the point where, you know what, it's becoming too much. Like, it's taking a toll on me. I can't take too much more of it. The apartment manager is like, okay, calm down. I'll reach out to Tina. I'll set up a meeting between all of us. I'll mediate it, and hopefully we can come to a resolve. And you guys can clear up any issues that you have. But child, this call only worsens the situation between the two. When the apartment manager contacts Tina and she finds out that they have called the apartment manager on her, she is pissed because she has her own grievances with Shanterica. And she didn't like the fact that they called on her like she is just this huge problem and she's the reason why they cannot peacefully coexist. Tina goes to confront Shanterica and she's just like, why would you call the apartment manager? Like, are you trying to snitch on me? Like, if you have an issue with me, we should be able to settle it. You should be able to come to me, not call your mommy crying, not going to the apartment manager to tell on me. Come address me.
I want to do a video reacting to old hairstyles.
Now, Tina had agreed to mediation, but when the date came up, she said that something that's related. Also,
I never got
prevented her from making the meeting. The meeting is never rescheduled, and so it never happens. The apartment manager does call Shanterica back to follow up. When they do,
I'm talking about the crochet where they had those jumps.
Shanterica tells them that everything is fine. They had a chance to talk and resolve their issues and work them out between the two of them, which was not true. It was not the case. They had not worked out anything, child. Nothing was resolved. They just had time to get away for a little bit, go home, be with family, and clear their head spaces. Shanterica had just told them that so they could pretty much just leave it alone because it obviously was a sore spot for Tina. The second semester begins and neither of the two young ladies feel like they even have it in them to continue through another semester living with the other. But unfortunately, they were unable to change their living arrangements. And so they really had no choice but to try to rough it over these next couple of months. Shanterica, she had actually contemplated dropping out altogether and not returning. But she decided against it because of all the stress. She just decided, you know what, I'll just lessen my classes this semester. She decided that with a little less academic stress, she could probably just endure the rest of the school year, just a couple more months, and this would all be over. They each go into the semester with the same strategy. Avoid the other one at all costs as much as possible. When you're at home, just stay in your room unless you need to go to the kitchen to get something to eat or drink. As a means of coping with her stress, Shanterica had begun to partake in the devil's lettuce, if you know what I mean. She would close her door, crack her window, and child get lit like Times Square on the night of New Year's Eve. Now, their rooms were right across from each other, not exactly, but like at an angle where if you're inside Shanterica's room, you can see a little bit into Tina's room if both of their doors are open. So one night, while Shanterica is on her way to Cloud 9, Tina starts to smell it, and she is like, oh no, oh no, 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 no.
No. Bruh, really? They had to use that.
I'll do something.
The school randomly drug tests the athletes, and failing a drug test can mean you get kicked off the team. She could not afford to test positive by inhaling any kind of secondhand smoke, and it just was not worth risking. The entire time that she was there, she had remained in good academic standing and on good terms with the coach and with the team, and she was not about to allow anybody else's actions jeopardize her scholarship and everything that she had going on and all of the things that she had worked so hard to build. So she immediately goes to let Tina know, baby, you can do that, but you can't do that up in here. Like, you gotta go. Not only is Shanterica high, baby, she is annoyed at this. She felt like Tina acted like she was her mother away from home. She was grown, she didn't need an authority figure. She felt like Tina had no right to tell her what she could and could not do, and that, it was just too many rules. Tina was just too uptight. Nothing that she did was okay to do. So she does not back down. The two exchange a couple of words, but ultimately Shanterica decides to just leave the house. She goes to a friend's house and she is talking, letting them know what happened and just how bad it is, how fed up she is. The friend suggests that she not go back to the apartment, just, spend some time away, clear your head, and get out of that toxic space for a while. At first, she's like, no, like, that's my apartment. I should not have to go somewhere else for peace. I should have peace where I pay bills. But ultimately, she does decide, you know what, maybe I should go somewhere else. Like, yeah, I will spend the night away, at least long enough to, cool off before I return. Tina turns to KC for support and just a vent, because she knows that him being an athlete himself and him being familiar with her coach and how hard he is, John, how much he don't play, he will understand of all people why this was an issue, that she just wasn't being petty. She wasn't just being, unreasonable and extra.
But how was
she was very much justified in her reaction. What was originally supposed to be one night away from the apartment, it progresses into a couple of nights away from the apartment, because after that first one, Shanterica is feeling better. She's feeling like her energy, her vibrations are back up, and she's just in a better headspace. So she's only returning to the apartment to drop off her dirty clothes in her room and get some new ones. She didn't even like being there for the little time that it took her to, make that little transaction, because Casey would be there. She just felt like she was overwhelmed and outnumbered being there at the apartment, and it was just toxic. The stress was taking a toll on Tina as well. Even without Shanterica being there, the energy of the apartment was just bad. She did not like being there. She could not wait to move out. She was looking at her options for her next apartment. Her and Casey were talking about getting an apartment together. She just could not wait for this to be over. Even though Shanterica was spending the night somewhere else, she knew that this wasn't permanent and that the girl would be coming back eventually. 5 days passed since the altercation that resulted in Shanterica spending a couple of days away with her friends. And Shanterica is out with her friend Renee. Renee's music class has a concert, and Shanterica had planned on attending the concert with Renee, but these concerts apparently were super boring. They weren't like, the fun ones. They were boring music class concerts, if you will. So the two decide they're gonna skip it. They go on campus, they buy themselves a little gram, and they're looking for a place to, light it up, get it popping. Typically on this day of the week at this particular time, Tina was away. She usually was not at the apartment, and so Shanterica's like, you know what, we might be able to go back to my place and do this, because Tina should not be there. She usually isn't. So let's go there and see. They enter the apartment, it's pitch black and it's quiet. Shanterica does a walkthrough, gives Renee the green light. We're good to go. Let's go in my room and light it up. The two will open the window in Shanterica's room, but her door is not closed during the whole ordeal because she has to wash clothes. So she's back and forth in and out of the room, which spreads the smell of the devil's lettuce all down the hallways. She's thinking it's all right because she got time to clear and air the place out before Tina returns. They're also very comfortable, enjoying the fact that they're the only two there. They're talking about Tina and the whole situation and how she can't wait for it to be over. Tina is just so extra, and just all of her grievances with her roommate, which of course she feels completely comfortable doing because she got the place to herself. They're all alone. She tells Renee about how excited she is to just either live on her own or find another roommate that she gets along with, because the place is just so much happier and she's just so much more at peace when she is at home alone like they are now. The only problem is they were not actually home alone. Tina is, in fact, inside of the apartment. She's just inside of her room with the door closed and the light was off. She was there waiting on Casey to come pick her up, and the two had plans to go get something to eat. Not only can she hear the two of them talking about her, she can also smell the marijuana. And so she is pissed. But she decides that the last time she tried to address Shanterica about this, it did not go so well. So she would take a different approach this time to rectify the situation. Tina calls the police. She then goes to Twitter and she tweets, "I just called the police on my roommate. I feel like a snitch, but I don't like this bitch." Moments later, Shanterica and Renee, they hear a loud knocking on the door, honey, and they hear police. Or whatever, the police say when they come to your door. So of course they are spooked, child. They immediately hide the rest of their little stash. They don't even know at this point that Tina is inside the apartment still. They soon realize though, when they hear her open the door and tell the police about them and what they were doing and where he can go and search and find them and arrest them and haul them off to jail. The officer comes to their room and lets them know that he had been called and, they have been reported. Basically, Tina is still very much hyped and amped up, and the officer tells her, just go to your room, let me handle it, I got it from here. He then tells Shanterica and Renee that they needed to be more careful. Things like this could cause them to get arrested, child. They could be kicked out of school. It can prevent Shanterica from becoming a lawyer in the future. They just have to be very careful. They do admit to him that they were doing it, but they were not anymore. In the little bit that they had left, he tells Shanterica that she needs to go flush down the toilet right in front of him, which she does. Sis wasn't trying to go to jail, so she just decided, you know what? All right, I'll flush it. Before the officer leaves, though, he tells Shanterica that it's obviously bad blood between her and her roommate, and whatever it is, they needed to fix it because this isn't really normal. So he's like, you know what? Y'all need to work that out. And she tells him that she will make an attempt, and he goes on about his way. Shanterica is pissed that Tina will call the police on them while they were doing this. And so she goes down the hall, honey, higher than giraffe ass and angry. Renee had gone back to Shanterica's room. The door was open. Tina had gone back to her own room, but her door was closed. And so Shanterica is knocking on the door. She'll call her best friend to tell her about the whole incident and let her know, child, police in there searching right now, girl. And then she hears a knock at her door. She's unsure if it's the police or who it is. It's not a people on the bedroom door. So she opens it and finds that it's actually Shanterica. And she's like, what do you want? Shanterica asks her, why didn't you tell me? As in, why didn't you tell me first that you were here or tell me to put it out?
You was talking shit about the girl.
Tina is like, well, why didn't you tell me before you called the apartment manager about KC being here all the time? Shanterica's like, I don't have to tell you anything. And so Tina's like, well, I don't have to tell you anything.
You started first.
At this point, the two ladies begin exchanging words back and forth, and Renee hears Tina threaten to pretty much whoop Shanterica's ass and tell her she'll, whoop her friend too. Where's your friend? Is she scared? Where'd she go? She can get it too.
Okay,
but Renee, she didn't want no parts of it. She said that she just went on, closed the door, child. And she started texting her friend, look, come pick me up because they doing too much. Then Renee hears one of the ladies say, don't push me. She is unsure whose voice it is. All of a sudden, she hears a lot of shuffling and furniture moving, and it's very apparent that the two girls are in an all-out fight at this point. She also hears one of two ladies say she has a knife, call the police. But again, she says she is unsure of which voice it is, and she does not call the police. She just calls her ride again. The next thing that she recalls hearing loud and clear is Shanterica's voice saying, my head, and Shanterica repeatedly asking her to stop and to hold on. And she hears Tina saying, hold on for what? All of a sudden, it goes quiet, and she doesn't hear anything. She doesn't hear any movements. She doesn't hear either of the girls' voices anymore. She hears nothing. A few moments later, Shanterica's bedroom door swings open and it's Shanterica. She is bleeding a little bit and she obviously was not the one who had the upper hand in the fight. Although Tina played basketball, she was not some Amazon of a woman. She was only 5'7", and that's not tall. Debate me in the comments if you want to. Sis, you might be a bit above average, but you ain't tall, okay? Stop it. Somebody needs to hear that. Now, granted, she is not all that tall. Shanterica is only 4'11", so she's pretty tall to her. So there is a significant height difference between the two. And with Tina being an athlete, it's not really that hard to believe that, she would physically take on Shanterica with no issue. Renee asked Shanterica if she was okay, and Shanterica's like, she cut me, but yes, I'm fine. And then she tells her, we need to go. Renee is like, why? What happened? And she's like, nothing happened, but we need to go. Like, we need to leave. Renee then asked Shanterica, where is Tina? Like, where did she go? And she tells her, Tina left, and we need to be leaving too. At this time, Renee is like at the doorway of Shanterica's room, and so she goes back to get her purse. As she is coming out into the hallway to go toward the front door, she sees Shanterica coming out of Tina's room with a balled up blanket in her hands, which she then takes to the kitchen to get a plastic bag, and she is stuffing this blanket inside of the plastic bag, but then a partial blade of a knife falls out onto the floor. And the two of the girls are just looking at each other. Renee's like, girl, oh no, Steve. I'm out of here now. Like,
she said, you ain't gotta ask me.
And I'm not leaving with your ass. Like, I'm leaving by myself. Shanterica attempts to hand the bag to Renee. And Renee is like, no, I'm not putting my hands on that. I'm getting out of here. Her ride had not arrived yet, but they were on the way. So she decided she would just wait for them out on the curb if she had to. As she is going past their bedrooms to leave to go to the front door, she does not look all the way inside Tina's room, but just passing the doorway, she can see the bottom part of Tina's leg, and it's clear that Tina is laid out on the floor, and obviously more than likely hurt. But she is unsure of how hurt Tina is. And at this point, she's very uncomfortable being there in the apartment with Shanterica, even though it's her friend. It's like, girl, I don't know what you capable of, what you might do. I'm about to go. She leaves the apartment, and there was this funeral home near, like right down the street. So she goes there, takes a ride, and tells her she'll wait for them there. Okay? She's just thinking about how she saw Tina's leg after Shanterica told her that Tina had left. And so she's just like, something might be really, really wrong here. While she's waiting on her ride, she calls the police anonymously and tells them that there's a fight and that they needed to get there ASAP because she didn't know how bad it was. Meanwhile, Shanterica is blowing her phone up and she does not want to answer at first, but she eventually decides to answer the phone because she saw Shanterica come out of the apartment with the bag. So she answers for Shanterica and she's just like, yeah, I'm down here at the funeral home waiting on my ride. Shanterica's like, I'm on my way. And Renee is like, damn, you don't have to be. Really, honestly, and truly, I prefer you not, but he might be a killer child, so let me just tread lightly. By the time Shanterica walks up, she no longer has the plastic bag with her, and Renee immediately notices that she has Tina's phone, this blue phone, like tucked in her bra. When Shanterica notices, she quickly tucks it down in her bra even more, and Renee is really she's really scared at this point. Shanterica starts asking her where she's going, who's picking her up. She does not tell Shanterica. She's just like, I don't know yet, but so-and-so is who is on the way. She's asking Renee if she told anybody. She's like, please don't tell anybody about anything that you saw here tonight. Don't mention it, please. Finally, Renee's friends arrive, and it's a girl that is familiar with Shanterica. Actually, it's two girls that come and pick her up, and they're familiar with Shanterica, but judging by what Renee had told them had happened up until that point, they were like, oh no, she can't get in the car. Like, she cannot ride with us. And so they leave Shanterica standing there on the curb in front of the funeral home with Tina's phone in her bra. Right before the altercation and during the altercation, Tina, like I said, was on the phone with her best friend, but at some point during the fight, the phone had gotten hung up, and she had tried to call back several times out of concern, of course. She's on the phone with her best friend. They started to fight, y'all, and then all of a sudden the phone goes dead. So, of course, she's concerned that she's now not answering the phone, but she is relieved once she receives a text from Tina stating, oh, everything is fine. I'm about to hop in the shower now. pretty much, I'll talk to you later. Casey had also begun calling Tina's phone, and his calls were being sent straight to voicemail, which he of course finds odd because they have plans tonight. So why are you now ignoring my call? Like, what's going on? When he receives a text response instead of a call back or an answer to his calls, he doesn't get the same relief that the friend got. He actually becomes worried that something is wrong, especially when he responds that he's just gonna go ahead and go home, and then he does not receive a text response after that. He gets the feeling that something is going on, something is wrong, and so he decides to go over to the apartment just to make sure that everything is okay. When he arrives, he immediately notices that her car is there parked, and not only that, the lights are off in her room up there, and so he's like, it's just 7 o'clock. This is weird. Like, I know she's gone to bed. We had planned. He got this really strong vibe that something was wrong. He goes up to the apartment and he finds that luckily the door is unlocked. He's able to walk right in. And as soon as he enters the apartment, who does he see? Shanterica. She is standing in the hall right near the door, and the first thing out of her mouth is, Tina's not here. And so he's like, he brushes past her, goes to Tina's room. Shanterica is hot on his trail. Meanwhile, like, she is right there on his heels following him. She's not saying anything at this point. He enters Tina's room and he is horrified to find her there, laying face down on her floor. He immediately kneels down beside her, turns her over. She is still breathing, and so he immediately dials 911. He is yelling at Shanterica, like, what did you do? Why would you do this? Shanterica takes off. While he is waiting on the ambulance to arrive, he is trying to keep her conscious, trying to talk to her. He also calls her dad to let him know that he needs to get there as soon as possible. And he just pretty much waits for the paramedics to arrive. They get there, they rush Tina to the hospital, and unfortunately, she does not make it. It does not take police long to locate Shanterica because she's still there in the parking lot hiding out with no plan. Renee had left her, and her friends had pretty much told her, nah, you can't come over here. You can't bring that over here. You can't ride with us. So sorry about it. Before going over to where Renee was, she had actually taken the bag and dumped it in a dumpster. She had also called her mother and told her that her and Tina got into a fight, but she does not mention how bad it actually was, and that either of them had been cut. They arrest Shanterica. She pleads not guilty, citing that she had done what she had done in pure self-defense. Now, according to her, after the police officer left and told her that, they needed to fix it, initially she was just gonna get her things and go. She was like, you know what, I'm just gonna leave. I shouldn't have come back here tonight anyway, like, Renee, let's go. But then on second thought, she felt like, no, I should at least have a conversation and apologize to her and let her know, like, my bad, I didn't know you were here. She goes to knock on Tina's door. Tina opens the door and is pretty much not trying to hear her out at all. She's telling her, you know what, you should just leave. Like, they do exchange the words of, why didn't you tell me? Why didn't you tell me? And then Tina is just like, girl, get out, like, just leave. But she said that when she turned to leave, Tina pushed her back, like, really hard. And so she turned around because, for lack of better words, she wanted to get her leg back. So she pushes Tina back. After Tina is pushed, she takes her little fist, balls it up, and then hits Shanterica right in the eye. At this point, a full-on fight ensues between the two. They are tussling back and forth. They're insulting each other. It's not long before Tina is completely getting the best of her. She said that she began to ask Tina or beg Tina to stop. She just wanted to be done at this point, like throw in the towel. But Tina would not stop hitting her. When Tina does not stop, she notices a knife that was already there in the room. She grabs it and just pushes it into the girl's chest. From what she remembers, that was pretty much the extent of the use of the knife, but Tina was also cut on the back of her shoulder and the back of her scalp. So something else had happened. And when Shanterica was asked about this at her trial, she said that she does not recall intentionally causing any more injuries, and that those might have happened after she had, grabbed the blade and then was still
because
tucking
they got
back
into a
and forth.
fight.
That's how she believed
Somebody
those
stabbed
happened.
somebody.
But nevertheless, she felt
It's
like
just-
she had to
so you
do
don't
that
fight.
in order to just stop the fight and
End
get
up
Tina
killing
off of
somebody.
her.
Or
It
fighting
is
people.
what she does after the fact that causes the jury to completely reject her self-defense claim, and she is
should've thought about
found
it.
guilty. Not only has she ditched the weapon, she had taken Tina's phone and responded to people who were attempting to
She was
reach her
scared.
via
I guess
text
she was scared.
in a
she
way
was
to
in
make it
trouble.
seem like she was still okay. She claimed to have done this because she said she was afraid that one of them might pop up or stop by, and she just did not want them to come there right away and find that she had done this to Tina. She didn't have a plan. She didn't know what to do at that point. You know, this was only the first full semester of her little criminal justice major job. She was still in the prerequisites. She had not had that time to learn that much about the do's and don'ts of criminal activity, and so she didn't know what the hell to do at this point. Shanterica Madden is sentenced to 25 years in prison, and she is set to be released when she is 43 years old. Her birthday is June 10th, so while I know that's not a Scorpio, I don't know who it is. Let me see.
June 10th.
That's
like
Gemini.
Somebody knows
It's
right
a
now.
Gemini.
And it's their sign,
This is my wife's.
and they are shaking in their spirit. June
I've been hearing
10th.
Geminis be lying a lot.
Yep,
My dad is
Gemini.
a Gemini.
Gemini people.
My dad.
This is y'all's man. Y'all,
He's a
this
serial
case,
cheater.
this is the thing. I
And
feel
he's
a
like
lot
a
of
good
ways.
Gemini.
Because, let me point this out for one, because I know it's going to be somebody who saw this story on Investigation Discovery. I know it's multiple shows. I only watched one. Now, I know they dramatify, if that's a word, it's going to be a word today. I know they dramatize a lot of situations.
That do sound like
But
a
with
word
this
though.
one, I realized they just flatly changed some of the story. So if you saw the show on there and you're like, no, some of this ain't in alignment with what I saw, they changed a lot of the events. And a lot of the stuff that they changed in the story, I didn't even understand.
You're right.
The whole
That just sound like
situation after the fact between Renee and Shanterica, how that went down, they portrayed it completely different than what was said during the trial. Granted, maybe 85% of what they showed on the show was in line with what was said during the trial. A lot of things were
well, she did get stabbed though, so it seemed like
I chose to
maybe
take the
they
word
just
of the people who I watched.
somebody stabbed somebody first and they end up being the one that died.
Testimony.
Because
One thing I did like
other
either about the
rock-
investigation discovery,
Yeah, but the
granted,
other
I feel like
the shorter
post on
one,
social
remember, the
media
one in
concerning
the
her
blue
social
dress, she's
status,
4'11".
some of the things that she did
And
could
the other one
technically
was
be considered
5'7".
as bullying. I
the
feel
one
like
in the blue was the
they
one who stabbed the other one.
unjustly
Yeah, but they said
vilified
that
her
the
and
other
painted her
girl,
as just
the
this
taller one,
terrible,
the one that's
nasty
bigger than her,
human
started
being.
it.
That's just my opinion. I don't agree
Because
with
remember,
everything
she's
that
the one that
did.
she
There were
heard
things
them
that
talking
she
shit
did
about
that
her
were
and stuff
clever
like that, so she
wrong
called the
and
police.
that I didn't agree
And I
with.
guess,
None of it, I
guess
feel
they,
like
well, I guess you were
justified
right.
what
I
happened
don't
to
know
her, but
who was wrong.
I don't know. That's
Whoever
just my
hit
own
each other
personal
first was
opinion.
wrong.
I think
For
they
these
were both
cases,
in the
most
wrong.
times, the picture that is painted
They just
clearly
being petty.
highlights one
Trying to snitch on
as
each other
a
and
victim and the other as, you know, this monster and the person that's in the wrong. I honestly felt for both of them. I understand having a situation that is not comfortable between you and the person you live with could probably push you to be, you know, to say or do some things that you wouldn't normally do. I really feel like this situation is just extremely unfortunate for both families. Both families lost a young woman who they loved and they supported and had so much life ahead of them, so much potential. It's extremely unfortunate that they just could not resolve these issues and coexist peacefully, and that it had to end like this. I cannot wait to see what y'all think about this. I feel like both ladies had valid grievances, and it's just insane that this is the turn that it took. Shout out to all the OG subscribers, as well as all the new ones. It's a lot of y'all. Like, we hit 100K, and it's just 4,000 of y'all just showed up out of nowhere. Welcome and hello. As always, and of course, I appreciate you guys spending time with me. And I look forward to seeing y'all again on Thursday. Don't forget to like my video before you leave or share with a friend. Share on your social media. Friends support friends, girl. Ain't we friends? Like, too bad for me. Y'all, I hope y'all have a good week and a great weekend. And I will see you in the next one. Peace. Live in like a student apartment. Okay, come on now. To be student housing, what? She then walks Shantina, I didn't mix their names, Jesus Christ. She decides to take some, oh, my nose itch, hold on, girl. Shantarica's friends are even noticing. Shantarica's friends are even noticing. Even. Why do I keep saying even, girl? Ooh, not me getting eyeliner everywhere and uncomfortable.
You know how to do your own makeup?
Both of you.
Or do you know how to do your own makeup?
Kicked off the
I don't do makeup.
Tina turns, oh my god, what did I do?
Special occasions.
Yeah, me neither, girl.
That's too
Wear
much.
natural.
Where is
Girl, I'm one of them. I don't wear no lashes.
What's the tea? Her lights off are in her room. Her
I have
lights
like
off
this
are in
for
her
my
room.
eyebrows. I only like
Her lights in
get
her
them
room are
like,
off. My brain is off today,
and I
actually.
tried like
Then in the hall,
what's it
right
called?
near the
Tint?
hallway.
That was nice. Might do
Lit.
it again.
Yeah, I tried that. I let the girl who did my hair give me the
You know what I really look like?
I like
love this wig. It's really cute.
I don't know.
or
I liked it
whatever,
after
but
like a day or so.
I don't like
Yeah,
bone
I
hair.
did like a
Bone hair. What?
because
I don't like
at first
bone
it just
straight
looked
It
hair.
just looked
you did
like
a horrible
Yeah.
job at
Yeah.
doing your eyebrows.
Yeah, just
I
like
look
some
like
like this.
Taboo from the
You
Black
got
Eyed Peas.
big
And I
eyes,
posted a
bushy
comparison on my
eyebrows.
Instagram and I was
But
like,
once you
oh,
got
that's
everything
cute.
off it, you look bad.
You look good. Don't say that. You look good. I'm like, I don't think I look bad, but look at this child. But look at this. Tell me we don't give the same thing. Tell me
Look.
we're not twins.
Look.
Like, I don't feel like I'm unattractive.
She's trying to-
I just feel like Taboo is what I get. Like, child, me, a middle part, bone hair. Why do I keep saying bone hair? Me, a middle part, bone straight hair. Hello, my YouTube family. Welcome back to my channel. If this is your first time here, then it's just welcome to my channel. And now welcome back. Go ahead and hit the subscribe button because you will not be disappointed. Unless, of course, your taste level is lacking and that's something I cannot relate to, girl. I don't even know what to tell you to do. But if that is not your struggle, welcome. I hope you are well. Speaking of wellness, for those of you who are not new here and know about Blue and the situation with him, we had our last and final doctor visit today just to make sure that his incision is healing really well and that he did not need another round of antibiotics, which he doesn't. We're just going to finish the ones that we have and he'll be good to go. He was so happy in the vet's office today. Like, everybody was like, he's like a completely different dog. The first time I took him in there, y'all, I was crying. He was like laid over in my arms, like he was clinging to life with his very last breath. We were going through a lot, but today he was so happy, shaking his little groove thing all around the vet's office. Like, he loves them so much at this point. I'm like, sir, I know these are your girls or whatever, but you will not be seeing them for a while, okay? Hopefully, fingers crossed, nothing else happens. I also have good news. So I am moving. I'm in the process of moving. I literally have to be out of my apartment in a week, and I just got a place to stay literally today. I don't even know if I have a whole week left, but I'm super excited about that. So I'm in a real good mood today. My baby is healthy and happy. I'm happy and healthy. Got a place to live. I hope y'all are happy and healthy and in good spirits as well. And without further ado, I'm gonna get into the case that I am here to talk about today. It is the case of David Fuller, aka the Mortuary Monster. If y'all ain't heard about this, child, you are in for a ride. This man was sick, to say the least. You might hear Bella snoring in the background. Maybe not. I don't know. I don't think the mic is gonna pick her up back there. But if you hear a little snoring in the background, girl, it's not me. I promise. It's my girl. Anytime I'm filming, she loves to come, get her little teddy bear, lay down and listen to mama talk. She uses me like live ASMR. And mama goes in deep with the sleep. Okay, she is really snoring up a storm. Her snoring is literally so cute. The deranged David Fuller was born on September 4th of 1954, a Virgo. Interesting. And David is born and raised on the south coast of England, Portsmouth to be specific. Now, I cannot find anything about his childhood, but I was like this little indie app that did a documentary on him or had a documentary streaming of him. But when I tried to do the little free trial to watch it right quick, it was no longer available still. So I can't really tell you anything about how he grew up. But at the age of 19, he is arrested and ends up pleading guilty to a series of home invasions. And this happens again just 4 years later. So in short, David was just a thug child running the streets and stealing. And each time he would get caught, he manages to evade jail time. Now, later on in his 20s, he seemingly puts his thieving ways behind him and turns his attention to more positive hobbies. He even gets married. He spends all of his free time
I have a baby brother who's a
cycling,
Scorpio.
bird watching, hiking, and
My
even
mom was
develops
born
an
January
interest in
28th. I think she's an
photography,
Aquarius, right?
which leads him to some pretty cool
January the
opportunities.
28th.
He goes on tour
Aquarius.
with the London rock
My mom
band
is
called
I don't know. My
Queen
mom
as
give
their
off evil a
photographer
little
in
bit.
1985, and by
I don't
now
know
he
nothing
is
about
30 years
Aquarius.
old
My
and on
mom,
his
my older
second
sister from
marriage.
my
He is also now
side,
living in
she's
Kent with his second
Capricorn.
wife,
Her
Sally.
birthday's
Now, his
January
first
14th.
marriage
she
to
act?
Jillian ended when he found out that Miss Girl was
Wow.
having
Like
an
she be
affair.
angry?
With Jillian, he had
Yeah, I
two
felt.
children and is
So we
reportedly
are
a
like
great
a little
father.
bit.
By all accounts, David cannot be more average.
Yeah, we
At least
crazy,
that's how
right?
he
Okay.
appears, because child, he is
It seems
far,
similar.
far from that. In 1987, 25-year-old Wendy
That's
Nails
crazy
recently
though.
settled into Kent
People
after
do say
the
that about
end of her
Capricorn.
marriage. Wendy gets a job working as a manager at a photo store called Super Snaps and meets David when he comes into the store needing some film developed. June 22nd, she leaves work at around 5 p.m. and spends some time with her boyfriend before being dropped off at home around 11 p.m. Sometime during the night, someone breaks into her home, entering through a back window, and it is none other than Mr. David Fuller. David beats and strangles Wendy, covers her body with a duvet, and steals her key ring and her diary before fleeing the scene. Wendy is discovered the following day, and what is really sad is all of this is transpired on her father's birthday. It is also determined that Wendy had been essayed, but strangely, it appears that it had happened post-mortem. DNA is left behind by the perpetrator, but unfortunately at this time, DNA science has not progressed enough for that to matter. However, the DNA, of course, is still collected and kept on file. Unfortunately, though, there's no other evidence left behind by the perpetrator to point them in the direction of who this person was. And just a couple of months later, before they can even get this situation or this case solved, another incident very similar to this one takes place. 20-year-old Caroline Pierce works at a restaurant in Wells, Kent, not far from where Wendy lived and worked. On the late evening of November 24th, neighbors of hers report hearing screams come from the direction of her home, but unfortunately, help does not arrive in time. David manages to get her out of her home. He assaults her in the same manner that he had assaulted Wendy and dumps her in a field near a trail that he had biked with his cycling club just a couple of weeks prior. It is 3 whole weeks before she is discovered, and because of the similarities between both crime scenes, it was very obvious that the same person was behind both. Again, there is hardly any evidence aside from DNA left behind to point them in the direction of their killer, but with what little information they do have, which is both women are young and had lived alone in small apartments, which they refer to as bedsits, they decide to give the killer a nickname, the bedsit killer. Now, the killer had again left his DNA behind on the tights of the young woman, and of course there's nothing that they can really do with it besides file it away, and they are left completely baffled. For now, David has gotten away with what he has done, but as the time progresses and so does science, the walls begin to close in on little David. Now, unfortunately though, he will get away with a lot more between now and then. In 1989, just 2 years later, David secures a job working as an electrician for the Kent and Sussex Hospital. And not only is David a murderer, child, he is a cheater as well. Within a year, he has kicked off a full-on affair with one of the nurses at the hospital, Susan, who describes him as a very gentle and sweet, loving man who treats her well. But he is not the only one out here playing the field within his marriage. His wife is also cheating on him, okay? I don't know if she was cheating back or if she was just a cheater. Sally actually leaves David for her side piece, who happens to be a member of their cycling club. Just messy. A very messy situation. David was completely blindsided by the whole thing. He had no clue that his wife was just sneaking and creeping with his cycling club member, okay? He is shocked, embarrassed, bewildered, if you will, by the news.
I be seeing them, so I'm like, y'all not scared of them big ass
moves on, and marries his third wife in 1999, with whom he has another child. He had one child from his second marriage as well, so now he is a father of 4. By all accounts, he lives a pretty uneventful life. He works at the hospital for 21 years before moving on to Tunbridge Wells Hospital and joins the maintenance staff there as an electrician, working from 11 a.m. to 7 p.m. Now, David's title gives him unsupervised access to all parts of the hospital, including the morgue. And what no one knows is that when the morgue staff goes home every day at around 4 p.m., David sneaks down there, pretending intending to check on the refrigerators and the light bulbs to perform sexual acts on the fresh bodies that had just been brought in. Now, the crimes that he had committed against Wendy and Caroline were not about the killing itself. He didn't really enjoy that part. It was about necrophilia, having his way with them after the fact. That is what he enjoyed, not the act of taking their lives. Him having this job and having unlimited access to the morgue enables him to fulfill this fantasy without having to take someone's life first. He is very careful to avoid the security camera while he's down there doing it, but he uses his own camera to record himself performing the act so that he could watch them back later. David has been doing this his entire career as an electrician without anybody noticing a thing. Meanwhile, DNA technology is advancing, and detectives have not forgotten about the infamous unsolved bedsit murders. In 2007, the DNA from both women are reviewed, and a DNA profile is created for the perpetrator and entered into a database. Now, this database would flag them if it matched any other criminals that are in the system. But unfortunately, it doesn't come back as a match right away. However, they do have it. So if he is arrested in the future, it would flag them, of course. Despite multiple cold case reviews and numerous appeals on TV, the bedsit murders continue to go unsolved for several more years. However, they are able to eliminate a lot of the people that they had as a suspect that they thought could have done this, and David's little DNA just lies dormant in their system without a match for several more years. Now, in 2020, they finally reached a break in the case when they have a hit. It is not an exact match, but it is a partial match, and it is very close to their guy. The partial match is to a person who not only lives in the area, but happens to be a sibling of David's. On December 3rd, police arrived at the now 67-year-old David Fuller's very nice family home where he resides with his third wife and teenage son, and they arrest him on suspicion of murder. Now, they are just here for Caroline and Wendy. They have no idea what else David has been up to all this time.
Oh, I remember this.
What? Oh, this?
Yeah, I saw it on the show.
David is what, black or white?
We're investigating the murders of Wendy Nell and Caroline Pierce in 1987.
Oh, he got charged with murders that he been did, and he thought he never was gonna get caught up with.
Mm-hmm. And then he testified to more.
I just know a lot of people got arrested once things started to get updated. Thank you. I just know a lot of people got
You do not
arrested.
understand it, it may not be defense if you do not mention when questioned something which you later on in court.
This is in England.
May be given evidence.
Mm-hmm.
You are being arrested to secure and preserve evidence by means of questioning. So we can conduct searches, so forensic samples can be obtained, and to prevent your disappearance. Do you understand?
They take a sample of David's DNA and it matches perfectly to the semen sample found on Caroline's tights, and also matches perfectly to the DNA found on Wendy's pillowcase and a towel inside of her home. Speaking to police, David admits that he does live near the ladies. Like, it's very likely that he could have, taken a stroll through both of their neighborhoods at some point, but he denies ever entering their homes or harming either women.
David, did you murder Wendy Nell? Did you murder Caroline Pierce? Did you know it was her? Now, David, it will come as no surprise to you that there are lots of similarities between these two murders, aren't there? Yeah? Do you agree with that? Do you agree with that? You've heard all the evidence? What's the similarities that you can think of, David? No.
Now, do they believe him? Of course not. So they proceed with a search of his house, expecting to find more evidence linking him to the two women. But instead, they find a nasty stash of home video footage of David desecrating more than 100 women and children over his tenure as an electrician at these two hospitals. They also find a diary that he's been keeping detailing his acts as well. It is now 2020.
That seems
Since
like
the
some
80s,
England shit.
David has been consistent consistently doing this to these bodies. He has over 4 million images of himself defiling corpses. And in his handwritten diary entries, he also talks about going to the women's jobs, super snaps, and also frequenting the restaurant that Caroline had worked at. They do go and check the hospital for security footage, but he had been so careful to avoid them that there's literally no footage of him doing any of this in the hospital security archive. The only videos of him doing this are the ones from his own collection. Now, from his personal footage and his diary, this little black book that he kept to write down the name of each of his victims, whether or not he circled back to revisit them, how many times he ended up defiling them before the body was permanently gone. Between his home videos and his diary, they are able to identify 80 of the people he's violated, and their ages range from 9 to 100. That's great. With everything stacked up against him, his little Chrissy back against the wall, he decides to go ahead and confess and tells them that he's not sure how long this has been going on. He doesn't remember when it started or how many of them he had abused. He shows no emotion whatsoever. He's very nonchalant about the whole thing, and also finally admits to killing Wendy and Caroline. But he claims diminished responsibility. David says that he suffered childhood trauma that he could offer no details about. He just said that it wasn't sexual when he was asked. He also says, quote, "I am not insane. I may have some residual personality problems," which, I've gone a completely almost Christian life and the deadliest life altogether. At the same time, with no crossovers, it's just two different personalities. Child, what are you talking about? Now, those who know David are stunned to hear what he's been up to. His second wife, his first wife, current wife, the children. Everybody is completely shocked. They all know him as this very quiet, very passive, average, everyday family man, father of 4, who loved to watch birds and ride his bike. His wife said she had no clue. She and his previous wives all said that there was no sexual deviance, no special request. He never asked them to play dead or anything like that that would have struck them as a red flag. They were completely taken aback. And I imagine very horrified. Because, child, you've been sleeping with me and corpses, I don't know. I imagine them ladies need a little piece of therapy, as I would. His co-workers are also very stunned. They all describe him as very friendly and helpful. Never would they have imagined that he was linked to any of the things. Now, as I said, initially he went in claiming that he was not guilty due to diminished responsibility, i.e. insanity. But 4 days into his trial, he realizes that, things are looking pretty bad for him. And it's probably in his best interest to go ahead and change that plea. So he does. He switches to a guilty plea, realizing that going to trial simply is not in his best interest. In December of 2021, he is sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. And this is just for the deaths of Wendy and Caroline. For his mortuary madness, he receives an additional 12 years, which I feel like is not enough time. 12 years is a slap on the wrist, but it's not like he's getting out anyway, so I guess. The mother of his youngest victim, the 9-year-old girl, she attends his sentencing and she addresses David directly, expressing her anger and disgust with him. Sadly, she also expresses feeling guilt for leaving her baby there in the crosshairs of this, at the time, 66-year-old pervert. And the judge also has some very harsh words for David, calling him a monster, because he is. After his conviction, investigators continue to identify even more of his victims, pushing the total count into the hundreds. Sadly, his horrific actions result in even more loss of life, because the investigators had to inform all of the families of each of his victims and let them know exactly what had happened. Among those people notified is 20-year-old Jay Carr. His mother, Jordana Carr, was one of David's victims. Sadly, his mother had taken her own life in 2015 when Jay was just 13 years old, and he had really struggled with his loss for a while, and he had finally reached a little bit of peace in his adulthood. At the time, he was doing a lot better. In October of 2021, after Jordana is identified, her family is notified out of the blue, and they are told in very graphic detail what had happened to Jordana's body. Now, according to Jay's sister, in the following months, he had become severely depressed. Jay's mental health had deteriorated rapidly. He had become obsessed with David Fuller. He would read about him nonstop. He would talk about him all the time. mom and what he had done to their mother. This had completely set him back on his mental health journey and processing his grief. September 17th of 2022, about a year later, Jay went missing. A search party was put together consisting of family members, friends, police officers, and volunteers. And 3 days later, he is found and he had taken his own life. There's also a mother whose name is spelled like Nike. I'm not sure if it's pronounced that way or Nike or another pronunciation. She had lost her husband and her 2 youngest daughters in a car wreck and was also among those people who were informed of David's horrific acts. Hearing about the way that her daughters were defiled by David was very emotionally damaging to her as well. And I'm not sure that was the best thing for law enforcement to do. I can get behind them, of course, notifying the family that it happened, but the details,
because they was gonna hear about it anyway.
Left out. Like, they had gone through enough losing their loved one, and for them to hear about this so many years on down the line after they process the grief is just really sad. Like, it been 7 years for this mother, and she, just like Jay's family, randomly got a call out of the blue, essentially restarting the clock on her grief. It's just very sad and sick, and David is still rotting away in jail with his old self. And that is pretty much it. And I would like to know your thoughts down below. So let me know in the comments. Like the video if you have not, subscribe if you have not. As always, I appreciate you so much for spending your time with me, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one. Peace. We're not gonna be homeless. Hallelujah. Well, hello. What is up, my YouTube family? Welcome back to my channel. If this is your first time here, then it's just welcome to my channel and not welcome back. Go ahead and hit the subscribe button because you will not be disappointed unless, you know, it's an issue with your taste level. If that's the case, I don't know how to help you. I hope you guys are well and taking care of yourselves. And the girls that are interested in gardening, it was really nothing to update you on this week because I've had to start so many plants new. But the next video I do is going to be like a gardening one-on-one. So if you have any questions in particular you want me to answer, leave them down below. Let me know. It's going to be like a very straightforward, if you want to get into gardening, this is what you need to do. Very ABC. Okay? Y'all stay trying to click my little hair behind the ear, girl, like it's long. It's long. It is long. I'm not going to waste any more time before I get into what we are discussing today, which is the case of Jamie Osuna. A menace to society, child, but we're going to start at the very beginning of his story. He was born in Bakersville, California on March 7th of 1988, making him a Pisces, and he was actually born the same year as me. His mother, Michelle, is 19, and his father is 21, and just about from the moment of conception, little Jamie has been going through it, okay? Things between his mother and his father are not the best, and his father is a very volatile man, very angry, very abusive. Jamie suffered a head injury before he was even born, while he was still vacant in the womb. She was about 9 months pregnant with him when his father lashed out at Michelle and kicked her in the stomach. Michelle forgave him for that day. They tried to go on with the relationship, but on the day of his birth, there was a visual reminder of that day. He had a scar on his right ear, a nice little dent. And Jamie actually suffers a second head injury as a toddler during a car incident that we'll get into in just a moment. So it was already a little touch and go from the beginning. Around age 1, his father decides he's going to leave the home, which is probably one of the best things that has happened to Jamie. And this leaves his mother, Michelle, behind to raise not only him, but his older brother as a single mother. The mama is not singing along for him, okay? Before Jamie even turns 2, she is entering into her second relationship with a guy named Jeff. Now, quiet as it's kept, they say she was already cheating with Jeff, and this is part of the reason why she and her baby's father did not work out. Can't confirm that, but they do get married before Jeff even turns 2. She and her sons move in with Jeff, who also has a son from a previous relationship that he shows very obvious favoritism toward. And he is not nice to either of Michelle's sons, but Jamie gets it the worst for whatever reason. There is one incident, according to Michelle, where they are all in the car returning from a fishing trip, and Jamie is crying. He's a very young child, like diaper size. He is crying because his diaper needs changing, so he's very fussy, which irritates Jeff. He reaches back, opens up the car door, and pushes Jamie's car seat completely out of the moving car. You were strapped in it, but
That
you
was
ain't
her
got a lot of
boyfriend?
room. Michelle was terrified because she realized like there was a truck that had been driving behind them this whole time that of course kept coming, but luckily the car seat landed upright and out of the way of traffic. Now Jeff pulls the car over so she can go back and get her baby out of the road, but refuses to take him to the hospital just to get checked out.